Good morning. I'm John Hutchings, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and this is going to be the entire agenda setting and work session for Tuesday, January 29th. Today's not the 29th, but we'll be talking about the 29th. What is today? Today's the 22nd of January, and we'll do introductions first. Go ahead, Ty.
Ty Menser, County Commissioner, District 3.
Gary Edwards, Commissioner.
Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
Bonita Bomar, Clerk of the Board.
Robin Woods, Executive Assistant Commissioners.
Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. And so I don't know if the audience, you have this packet, but we're going to be working from this sheet, which directs us to a whole big stack of stuff here. So the first thing first is we'll review the draft agenda for Tuesday's Board of County Commissioners meeting for January 29, 2019. And at 2 p.m. we'll call the meeting to order. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Menser. We'll do the approval of the minutes and approval of the agenda, and then move right into item number 1, opportunity for the public to address the board. Are you aware of anything? Anybody aware of anything?
Yes, you may receive some public testimony related to the homeless issues that is just about everywhere, particularly in downtown Olympia. So that's probably my expectation. You will hear some testimony related to that.
That's what I was going to bring up. At the last City of Olympia Council meeting last Tuesday, the council was fairly adamant about contacting the Board of County Commissioners to make comment. So we can perhaps expect that. Anything else, Romero?
No.
Number 2 is the County Manager's update, following up on citizens' issues.
Yes, I would like to follow up. On the last board meeting, you received 2 public testimonies. One, urging the Commission to consider sending a letter to the governor, encourage the governor to declare an emergency related to homelessness. I believe you had a discussion on that, and the board agreed to proceed with that, so I'll report on those terms. Also, you received public testimony related to accusing the staff, perhaps lying to the board, so I will like to address that as well. And I think there was the specific names included in the public testimony. And again, there is no evidence that those accusations have been reported to the board in the past. And I will ask at that time if they have any specifics. I will be more than happy to follow up. But at this point, just public testimony and just broad comments is not appropriate. And those individuals involved, county staff, really feeling that attack personally, which is not appropriate either.
Questions or comments? Once this is taken care of, will that individual be recontacted with the results of those types of comments? That they're unjustified, or if that's to be the case, or unjustified and unfounded?
I will use the name of the individual who provided public testimony, and hopefully, if he's not here, hopefully he will get the message.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That takes us to item number 3 on the agenda for the 29th of January, the consent items A through O. And the first one is Public Works and the City of Yelm member to be appointed to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah, most of the appointments for your consideration today is this a result of you reviewing those applications and agreeing to move forward with a formal action. You reviewed those on January 15th. The first one is for your consideration the appointment of E.J. Curry as the City of Yelm representative for the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. This is a 3-year term that goes from March 2019 to March 2022.
Any questions? Comments? Questions? Nope.
This is just reviewing the ones we already went through.
And this is the formal action that you need to take.
Yeah, and
next
we'll
week.
do that on the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're okay with that? Any questions or comments on that one? Okay. Letter B Again, Public Works, City of Tenino,
Yeah.
member appointed.
Yeah, this is another appointment. This is related to Mr. Dave Watterson as the City of Tenino representative to the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And the proposed term is a 3-year term that goes from January 2019 to January 2022.
And so again, for the benefit of the public, we discussed these issues last week.
Last week, yeah.
We're discussing them again today. And so when it comes to the 29th, we just approve one
Is that
lump sum, all the
consent?
consent items.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're just approving it behind closed doors. It's very public.
Commissioner Messer.
Yes.
has a question.
Just procedurally, if there was a disagreement about them at our previous discussion, and do they still go on the consent calendar?
No,
items?
if there's any disagreements, let me know, and we'll bring that item as a
As a
county
separate-
manager's item, and then you will have the opportunity to express how you like to vote on that.
Got it.
Yeah, so we just pull it.
Yeah, just let me know.
Good question, though. You okay so far?
Yep.
All right, C, Public Works again.
There's another appointment. This is for Ms. Joan Cathy as the City of Tumwater representative on the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. The proposed terms are 3 years. That goes from March 2019 to March 2022.
Questions? Question? All right. D, David, or Delta.
This is also another appointment. In this case, is related to the citizens' commissions on salaries for elected officials. This proposal is to appoint Mr. Bill Ireland as the District 1 representative for the Thurston Citizens Commission salaries for elected officials. I believe you had a long conversation on this. And this term will go from March, this term will end on March 31st, 2019.
All right, questions, comments?
We discussed Mr. Ireland? Okay. All right.
Anything? All right, thank you, sir. E, Emergency Services Ambulance.
But if you have any questions related to that discussion, I can probably get some feedback. You may remember the discussion was how much the Board of County Commissioners would like to get involved in appointing an individual to the Salary Commission. And my recommendation was just to get recommendations and appoint, because the Salary Commission sets the salary for the commissioners.
I remember the substantive discussion. I just didn't remember his name.
Okay.
But I understand what the consideration was, why we wouldn't really scrutinize that, because, yep.
Okay. E, Emergency Services.
This item is not ready for your consideration, so it will be removed from your agenda, and we'll bring it back in February.
So at this point, then, will be A through M and N.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll revise the
All right, F, Public Health and Social Services.
Yeah, this is for your consideration to reappoint Mr. Sean Smith to the Veterans Advisory Board for the term of November 2018 to November 2021.
Anything?
Thumbs up.
Good. That's done, thank you. G, Human Resources.
This is a reappointment for your consideration of Ms. Jennifer Roberts to the Thurston County Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term. They will expire January 29, 2025.
Okay, okay. H, appointment to the Agro-Tourism Advisory.
This is for your consideration to reappoint Ms. Juanita Turman to the Agri-Tourism Advisory Committee for the term 2019 to January 2021. Would you like to move that as a
I'm fine.
Are you okay? All right. I, Central Services Lease Extension.
This proposal is to consider a lease for 1 year and this is related to an office located in 807 Railroad Avenue, Shelton, Washington, where the Community Action Council, Lewis Mason, provides the health and social services for the Nurse Family Partnership Program. This is for 1 year. This is a very good lease. It's $300 a year. That will be $25 a month, which includes utilities. And that will allow the NFP, the Nurse Family Partnership Program, to operate and provide services in Mason County. This particular item is related to the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiatives 1, 2, and 6.
Question? I think it's a great idea, but I don't remember discussing it. Did we?
This is the first time you'll discuss it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I think it's a great idea. It's a great deal.
If you have any questions, we have a
Do.
week to come back.
My question was, did I forget?
No.
But you answered that. Thank you. So J is, oh no, I is okay then.
So
J.
the appointments are the only ones you have discussed. Those are new items for you,
Yeah, this is
for the most
great.
part. Yeah.
What a great deal. J, community planning and economic development.
Yeah, this is for your consideration. The appointment of Jaquita McClure to the Agriculture Advisory Committee, and that will be for for a term of 2 years.
This was the item that I made a record of why I didn't support the appointment, so I'd prefer
So
this not be on the consent agenda.
We'll bring that as a department item, and you'll have the opportunity to
Thanks.
on the county manager's item. Yeah.
Still for the 29th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And K, public defense.
This proposal is for you to consider the reclassification of an office assistant 2, which is vacant, to a legal assistant 1. This has gone through the process with the human resources to what we call as a desk audit. And the desk audit, what it does is look at all the different activities this particular position does, and making sure the reclassification aligns to the business needs. And that is the process they have gone through. And this is also recommended by Human Resources. The impact on the budget goes from $4,119 to $4,541, which is $422 a month, or 10%. And the office is not requesting any budget adjustment as a result of this proposal. And again, the numbers that I gave you, the $422 a month or 10%, that's the maximum based on the classification. This may not necessarily be in which the new person will set the salary. So it really is not an impact, it's just a reclassification request. This item is aligned to the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative number 18.
Questions? If somebody was hired or at a higher rate, they can absorb that within their budget?
Usually
Shuffle.
they have the authority to hire at the first step.
Just first step then?
First step.
Okay.
If for any particular reason they would like to hire above the first step, they need to have approval by the county manager.
Okay, thank you. And letter I, again, Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement.
This is a good news item. The Human Resources have been able to secure a collective bargaining union with the Thurston County Sheriff Deputies Association, and this is for 3 years. And this is a good deal. Let me take you back on the previous contract where we had it on for 2 years. And on the second year, we had a wage reopener clause. And through the conversation at that point, the Sheriff Deputies Association requested an 8% cost of living increase versus the 2.5% that we were proposing. And that ended up going all the way to arbitration, as you may recall. And the results of the arbitration came back in December of 2018, which is about 2.8%. And that's what it was. So with this, what it does is puts the brackets as to how the cost of living increase will be put in place in the next 3 years. And takes out the unknown and perhaps the option of going through arbitration if we don't do that. So this is a good deal.
Question? Yeah. Yep. Questions? So it's a 3-year or 2-year?
3-year.
Okay.
It's
Is
a
there still
3-year.
wage opener?
Nope.
And it's gone.
No, it's gone.
Wow. Okay.
It does have some assumptions of cost of living increase on 2020 and 2021, but it's tied to the CPI.
CPI of Seattle.
And there's a maximum and there's a minimum. So there is no like, the brackets are put in place. So it's a
Good, very good.
good contract.
M, emergency services.
Yeah, for your consideration is to approve and renew an application for Olympic and AMR ambulances applications to continue to do business in Thurston County. This has been reviewed by the Emergency Services Council. And just to let you know, they only have to pay $20 per application to do business in the county. So they have paid the $20.
Wow, okay.
And anyways, so
Paid in cash.
paid in cash, there you go. What a bargain.
Hey, what a deal.
Maybe at some point, can ask Kurt, the Emergency Services Director, to look at the application fee to see if at least to cover the essentials.
The earlier item that we're still waiting for federal review from the federal level on ambulance ordinance, it does have.
Yeah, who are you?
So Kurt Hart, Emergency Services, that earlier item that we deferred to February, which is ambulance ordinance review, that we're trying to get a federal legal opinion on, also has in there an increase in the application fee for the ambulance companies, because it hasn't been looked at since 1992.
92?
92.
What's the recommendation?
Recommendation is to adjust it for consumer price index and bring it up to $35.
35? What a bargain. Cheaper. I mean, it's good for the citizens, but still, that didn't cover costs, I would think.
Well, and we will take it under further advisement as well.
Okay.
right.
Thank you, Kurt. Questions or comments?
Thank you, Kurt.
You all right?
No.
All right. That's funny. And Public Works.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week, and you agreed to appoint Renee Radcliffe.
What in the
Sanctor.
name of all that is holy? This thing just fell, is it locked or something, or not locked? I leaned on it, just came down.
It's locked, and which one? Oh,
I'm not gonna touch it again now. It's a trick table.
sorry.
All right, go right ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I think it's backwards for you.
Okay. The SWAC appointment.
Yeah, appointment for Renee Radcliffe Sinclair for District 3, and this is a citizen representative to the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee for a 3-year term, beginning February 2018 and then in February 2022.
Question?
No, I received a lot of positive input about Ms. Sinclair, and I support this.
Yeah, anything? Okay, good. Moving on then to, currently it's O, but that's gonna change. Auditor, Financial Services, approval of the voucher list, and those were sent to us.
Yeah, and this is your weekly approval of the expenditures.
Okay. Any questions about the vouchers? Question about the vouchers? Okay, good. That takes care of all the consent items. Now we'll move to the department items. Number 4 on the agenda. We'll start with the sheriff, contract with the city of Rainier.
Yeah, this is a request for your consideration from the Sheriff's Office to continue with the law enforcement services the Sheriff's Office provides to the city of Rainier. This current contract, which is $198,000 a year, ends on June 30th, 2019. This proposal is for a 5-year term that begins July 1st, 2019 and ends June 30th, 2024. Each year has a little bit of a different amount. On year 1 is $265,518. Year 2, $211,706. Year 3, $213,823. Year 4, $271,869, and year 5 is $218,121. And this particular contract is a good commitment by the city of Pioneer to continue the services with the sheriff's office.
Good.
Go ahead, do you have something yet?
It says here, purchase of a vehicle.
Yeah, that's what the variation of the yearly amounts that I just listed to you. One of those years include the purchase of a vehicle to provide the services.
So every 5 years, a new vehicle's per every 4 or 5 years, a
So
vehicle's
the
purchased.
first year, 265,000 includes the vehicle, and then in the second year drops to 211,000.
And then it's up to 271 in year 4, you said.
Yeah. And they continue the revolving, because the way we have the vehicles as part of the ER&R, the equipment replacement, so this vehicle has to go in there, so they have to contribute every so often just to make sure when it's time to replace it, we have the money available on those funds without having a big hit on the budget. And I believe that is included in this contract as well.
Okay, so this is just basically contribution toward, and then the sheriffs decide when to actually purchase the vehicles.
Yeah.
And years ago, when the city of Tenino was considering contracting with the sheriff's office, the bid that came in included the price of an additional vehicle. The same setup. Yeah. All right, any other questions on that? Nope.
No.
Okay. Number 5, central services, bidding. Oh, a bidding project.
Yep. By the way, the sheriff's item is aligned to the Thurston County Strategic Plan, item number 12, initiative number 12. There's item 5A from Central Services for you to consider awarding a bid of $124,461, including 10% sales tax for a project at the coroner's office to change the air handler system. On January 5th, 2018, we received 3 bids. The low bid included $78,300, and the additive, which is included in your proposal, of $25,600. That's the total of $124,461 with 10% taxes. The low bidder was Capital Heating and Cooling of Lacey, and this will be covered by building reserves. And the budget for this particular project in 2019 was $190,000, so it's a little below the budget allocated. And this item is consistent with Thurston County Strategic Plan, initiative number 16.
Anything?
No. No. Good.
An upgrade in the air handling for the coroner, I think is
Yep.
a good idea. That'll be easy. Okay.
I will say.
Number 6, Public Works.
This particular request is for you to consider entering into an in-local agreement with Thurston Regional Planning Council, the City of Lacey, and the City of Olympia, as well as Inner City Transit. And this is to conduct a study of Martin Way corridor between Pacific to Marvin Road. As you can attest, some of you could travel that particular corridor. There's a lot of traffic. And I believe in peak hours, it's over 50,000 vehicles that we see on a daily basis. And this particular corridor hopefully will give us the strategies as to how we're going to be improving the corridor, both from the pedestrian point of view, from the transit point of view, and as well as just the overall management of the traffic. The total cost of this project is $523,410, and we'll add that on the description of the item, please. And currently is funded by the federal government, a federal grant by $452,750. The county will contribute as a match to the federal grant $23,410, and the other 3 jurisdictions will have a contribution of a combined $45,250. This item is aligned to the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative 6, 8, and 13. Questions?
Yeah, we have Public Works and TRPC in the house, if you have any questions or comments of staff.
Where does that match money? What budget? area does that come from?
The $23,410 from the county comes from the road fund.
Okay.
Any questions? Because we're going to discuss it again on the 29th.
If you have any
It'll come up again.
questions,
So this is just getting things started with an initial agreement to go forward. Is that what's being presented?
yeah, this if you agree on approving this item, then we'll enter into an agreement again with the regional planning council, which they will be the ones who conduct this study, GRPC, and the other cities will participate on that as well, and intercity transit. In studies like this in the past, looks at, for instance, intersections, right? And they will go through a traffic analysis to determine how many left turn lanes you need, how long those left turn lanes are, whether you need a signalized intersection, whether you don't need a signalized intersection. Perhaps you may end up having a recommendation to have a runabout somewhere. I'm not suggesting one, but that could be the outcome of that. Also, they were looking at pedestrian and bicycle access on that roadway, and along the way also how intercity transit can improve and increase perhaps the current service they provide on this corridor. That's really the gist of this, the corridor study.
And how many dollars did you say are coming from outside?
The federal government contributes $452,750. That's via grant from the Surface Transportation Program.
Okay. That seems important.
It does. That's it? Okay. Still under Public Works, tree removal on Mackenzie Road.
Yeah, this is an item for your consideration to allow Public Works to remove a dangerous tree located adjacent to 1513 Mackenzie Road Southeast. Under Thurston County Code 1356-310, it is required for the Board of County Commissioners to take an action every time that a tree needs to be removed within the county's right-of-way. An arborist was hired, and the arborist provided a report in November 2018 suggesting that perhaps the tree is dangerous as it's ready to fall down. And this is more about lessen the risk and liability to the county.
Well, I might have the same question, but go ahead.
What would that take to have that ordinance adjusted, to have the county manager have the authority to do this?
So what we can do is have Public Works look into that particular code amendment. It will require setting up a public hearing, and then you will have the option to change that, obviously. So we'll follow up on that.
If we do that, could you set the public hearing at the same time? Maybe we have another public hearing.
Yes, that is the intent.
Double them up. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? That was my question. I'm not saying it's the best idea or it's a bad idea, but I would like to discuss it at least. It just seems like it needs a chat.
Public Works will come back with some options for you.
Okay. We just need to get out of the way. C, master agreement with Puget Sound Energy and street lighting services.
So across the county, as you may see, sometimes we put street lights on PSC poles. And that is most likely on the unincorporators of the county. To give you a perspective, we have 1,063 street lights in unincorporators of the county.
How many? 1,000 what?
1,063. Out of those, 436 are hang on PSC poles. So obviously nothing comes for free. So this agreement allows us to continue the collaboration with Puget Sound Energy, and we have set aside $15,000 a year from the road fund to compensate PSC to manage the street lights that we own.
15,000.
Yep.
Good.
And this is a item is aligned to Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative Number 8.
Has it always been 15,000?
I think it has been for a little while.
Okay.
Do they wipe them down, change the
They
bulbs?
do anything?
No,
Yeah.
no. It's just to allow us to use
But for us to go and
Renting the
service our
pole.
own.
It's like a lease agreement or
The
a rent agreement.
privilege.
So,
For 400 and some?
but not to say, last week when you were having a conversation in terms of franchise agreements, I briefly mentioned to you the big franchise agreement that we need to start negotiating with Puget Sound Energy. When we get to that point, all that should be on the table up for negotiation, because all of their facilities are located within the county's right of way for free.
Oh, for free, okay. Oh, please.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. Just point of clarification, that $15,000 is actually the cost for installing any lights that need to go on there as well. So because they're PSC poles, they and their contractors are the ones that do the work. So yes, there's probably some cleaning, but it's also the installation of those as well.
Thank you.
But we install them.
No,
The PSE installed them.
that is correct.
That's what the
Okay.
question
Now
really
that-
was.
that-
Yeah.
That makes more
correct.
sense now,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anything? Anything else? Anything else? Good, Ty? Okay. D, Delta, the resolution for temporary closure of 198th Ave Southwest.
Yeah, for your consideration is for you to have a temporary closure of 198th from Old Highway 99 to the Key Bank driveway. And this is a commercial driveway, the access 198. There is a proposed detour map, and there is going to be a small impact to the citizens traveling that area. But let me take you back, maybe a little larger conversation. And this is related to the transportation improvements on the Grand Mountain area. And this particular request is related to the proposed roundabout that is going to be built on Old Highway 99 and 198. And the Chehalis tribe is the one who is going to be doing all the construction and absorbing all the costs for that particular roundabout. And this is just one of the many transportation projects that we have planned for the Grand Mountain area. Also, you may recall in conversations that we have with the tribe as well as some local developers is to build another roundabout at Sargent Road and Highway 12 as well. So if you look from a larger point of view, this is more of a systematic way to address the transportation needs on the area. And also the roundabout located in accessing the casino, 512 in Anderson Road on the Chehalis Tribe Reservation.
Questions? I've got one, but go ahead, Ty.
This is in the Grand Mound area, essentially?
Yes. So if you, when you get off the freeway I-5, that's Highway 12, in the first intersection where it's Starbucks,
Yep.
that's all Highway 99. So if you go south a couple of blocks, that's 198. That's where the runabout is. Because at this point, as you travel that area, there is no way to
They're trying
change
to
direction.
fix that problem
Yeah,
of
so
having to
it's-
go south.
Yeah, because we have a median there,
Mm-hmm.
and there is not a way for the traveling public to make a U-turn unless you go into private property and make a U-turn. This runabout is really going to be addressing that issue.
So this is just a temporary closure, looks like February, March, 3 months in
Yep.
order to facilitate that project.
So the construction move faster than otherwise be, managing with active traffic is complicated.
So unless I misunderstood, from what I understand is Chehalis Tribe are funding
Yep.
the project, but they're not doing the project.
Well, a contractor.
Okay.
They
So they're hiring a
hire-
contractor,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And does the contractor, whomever they hire, do they have to meet county standards and state
Yeah,
standards for
they
the
have,
highway and all
in
that?
fact, the staff has reviewed the standards, everything has met the standards.
Oh, good, okay. And then
Because they're
Wasatch-
working in the counties right away.
Right. But isn't Old 99 also a highway, so WasDOT's involved?
No, that's ours.
It is ours,
Yeah.
completely ours, okay.
It's just the name. Old
And
Highway 99.
I know the answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is, what kind of major notifications are going out and via our PIOs, the messaging, on that for everybody that
Maybe the director can answer that question for you.
thank you, Jennifer.
Yes. Do you want me to introduce myself again, or?
You got it.
You're still Jennifer, right?
I'm still Jennifer
still
Walker,
sworn in.
Public Works Director. Yeah, we've had ongoing conversations with the community there, and actually specific conversations with the businesses in this area to talk to them about what we're proposing, because the 3-month closure, the primary purpose is to eliminate the left turns that are happening as the construction is going on, which will create quite a bit of backup. So we're trying to eliminate that. There's been ongoing conversations
Okay.
and meeting with the community.
Wonderful, good, and we just hope there's no weather delay.
Very true.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anything else? No? Okay. Good, thank you. E, BNSF Railway Company Bridge Overpass or Underpass Agreement.
Commissioner Hutchins and Commissioner Edwards may recall this item, but for the benefit of Commissioner Menzer, this is related to a proposed tunnel. They will go under the BNSF lines at the end of the Chehalis Western Trail. If you travel from Yelm Highway on the Chehalis Western Trail, if you go south, let's say just about 2.5 miles, that comes to a T intersection, and the trail takes a hard left, goes on a gravel path. That gravel path
I know that's-
is BNSF easement. So over the years, we have used that, but not necessarily permit from BNSF. So after you travel to the left, you go under a railroad trestle along Rainier Road, keep going to Rainier Road, maybe 400 feet, and then you pick up the trail after that. So the ideal situation, the original alignment is, and in fact, 20 years ago, it used to be a tunnel. They would just go under the Chehalis Western Trail. And I believe maybe 10 years ago, that tunnel was burned by its own due to vandalism. And the result of that was the BNSF just filled that. So over the years, the BNSF have seen somewhat of a safety risk, because some pedestrians, as opposed to going around the Chehalis Western Trail, again, the gravel path, Rainier Road, and pick up the trail, they go over the embankment and cross the BNSF lines. So that creates a big concern. So this has been a long work by the Public Works staff to get to the point of building a tunnel. Actually, it's going to be 2 tunnels under the railroad. And that way we have already the right-of-way to continue on with the alignment. So the connection of the Chehalis Western Trail will be off Rainier Road and will be a straightaway in a way. And so this particular project, we have set aside about $1 million, a combination of the real estate excise tax 2 and park impact fees. And there is, as you may recall, there was a lot of conversation as to the amount of liability the county will incur by going on this particular venture. So I will ask probably Public Works to come and have a conversation to the commissions in terms of the liability and what the obligation the county may get into if in fact you approve moving forward with this project. The project itself is what we needed. I don't believe there is an issue with that. It's just making sure that we know the consequences of the liability when we're going to do this agreement.
And you're still under oath, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm also with Rick Thomas, who is the manager for our Program and Project Management Office. So Rick's actually and his group have been working with BNSF in negotiating. So as Romero mentioned, we briefed the board on November 6th. And at that time, there were 3 items that we wanted to highlight. One was that Burlington Northern Santa Fe wanted the county to be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of that rail line because we were doing the underpass. They also included any changes or alterations or widening or reconstruction, and any work to the traffic surfacing due to settlement that was caused. So during negotiations, the board was not comfortable with that. We went back and continued negotiations, and I am going to have Rick pick it up from here.
Thank you, Rick Thomas with Public Works. What the final proposed agreement with Burlington Northern is, as of right now, is for $850,000. Burlington Northern will design, construct, and maintain the underpass bridge structure in its totality. That's a not-to-exceed price. In addition to that, the county asked if there would be a chance that we could prepay for a proposed third bridge if they were to put in a third line in the future. They did come back and say that that's so far out on the horizon that they did not want to do that. And just so that the board knows, they do not have a third line on their long-range plan anywhere at this point. So we're proposing as a part of this agreement that the third line is not included in this, and it would be something that the county would basically negotiate with in the future if they wanted the trail to continue through that path. In addition to that funding, there is also about an acre easement that we needed to get from Burlington in order to literally go under their rail lines. We had an appraisal done on that, and the appraisal came back at $22,800, and it was reviewed and justified that that was a fair and reasonable price. In addition to that, there is an administrative fee of a couple of $1,000s for processing that. And also Burlington will require a nominal construction fee for us to actually work on that property. So in total, with the easement and the temporary construction license and the administrative fees, that's expected to be under $40,000. So the total obligation to the county is about $890,000 at a maximum. So of that, there is about, as Romero was indicating, about $1 million that was set aside. The additional $100,000 would be used for staff time for managing the project, as well as covering any unforeseen conditions that might come up. Albeit there should not be any, because the BNSF is taking our responsibility now for any issues about alignment or settling that might take place as part of their design and construction. And they are also, they've also agreed that the costs for them to modify that structure in any future time in order to meet any additional needs that they might have would be covered by Burlington and not by the county. Are there any questions?
Oh, yeah. Question?
Nope, sounds
Oh,
like,
no.
sounds like you did good.
Go ahead.
I think it's kind of funny, you said there, as for unforeseen circumstances, there shouldn't be any. But that's why they're called unforeseen. Now, the why 2 tunnels versus 1, and what will the width be, and are they lighted?
The reason that it's called out to be 2 is because in Burlington's vernacular, wherever they have a rail line, it's called one bridge. And so there's actually 2 lines running parallel. Because of that, in their vernacular, it's 2 bridges, 2 tunnels. It's really going to be one structure.
Oh, it is?
But it passes under 2 lines.
And will it be of the material that won't be combustible at this time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, it'll either be steel or concrete.
Okay.
Good question, Commissioner.
Hey, thank you for the validation. Construction material, lighted width, okay, and that's all the questions I have.
Can you, I mean, the words bridges, underpasses, and you've used tunnel. Can you just describe this for me so I can visualize what exactly the structure of this is?
Yes. It's a bridge in the context of Burlington because that's going over our tunnel. It's an underpass for the county's prerogative because we're going under their under their rail line. The design hasn't been completed yet. Part of us getting the agreement together and approved will really kick off the design. There are several options for this design. It can either be a steel girder type of structure. They're also looking at it being a box culvert type of structure. And in fact, part of my team is meeting with Burlington in about 10 minutes out there with the survey team just to talk about what those options would be. I mean, this is a high-quality bridge. This type of bridge has a nominal lifespan of about 75 years, just to kind of give you a context. I mean, it's same, you know, if the county does a bridge on a county facility, we use the same standards that Burlington uses for theirs.
But it's truly more like a tunnel going, nothing's being lifted in the air. It's going underneath the existing rail.
It will be going underneath the existing rail. The existing rail is, it's about a 20-foot elevation above the existing grade. And so they literally are going to be putting something underneath their rail. The grades on both sides probably will not change significantly at all. There's plenty of height for them to put in about a 12-foot wide by 12-foot high underpass without disturbing the grades on either side to any significant degree at all.
So they're actually punching through?
Yes.
So
So
as
they're
the
gonna
trail
bore
comes
it?
down, the rail
They
line's
may.
up here, and they're punching through underneath.
Is Bertha coming down from Seattle?
Big Bertha?
Big Bertha? Yeah.
I don't
That won't
think
take
we're
long.
gonna need that much power.
No.
And whatever the choice is for the construction technique will fall under the price that's been negotiated.
That is correct.
So those are not greatly differing cost.
They are not.
Okay.
And this, just please reiterate, this is not for cosmetics. It is for safety of the vast number of folks that are using the trail to keep them off the Rainier Road and off the railroad tracks.
That is correct.
And do you have any numbers on how many people utilize that? We probably don't put out the road things. Any ideas? There are tons of people. STP uses that every year, don't they?
Yes.
As well. So it's major is a safety issue for the public.
That is correct.
And when will construction begin and when will it be completed?
Once the agreement is completed, Burlington has this on their schedule to do this summer, or this spring.
And it just take a few months?
It'll take a couple of months to do all the planning, to get all the materials together. They're anticipating the physical work itself will probably take no more than probably a couple of weeks. They have a real vested interest to make sure that the line stays active, and so when they get in there, they're working long hours to get it completed.
Any further? Very good. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
What is the next one?
F.
F. There we go. On-call engineering and professional consultant services contract.
We're going to
Welcome
stay
back.
here just in case.
This particular request before you is to increase the amounts of the contract that we have with professional services engineering firms. So let me take you back a couple of steps in terms of this is a good way to meet the demands of the engineering services related to the increasing workload that Public Works does. You may ask the question, why not hiring more engineers versus the hiring consultants? That always seems to be
I never asked that question.
the question. And I think there is a fundamental reason as to why. Because with consultants, we just assign specific tasks, whether we have the expertise in-house or not, or it's just purely related to workloads. But also when the construction program drops down and we don't have much of work for engineers, we just don't hire and we just say, thank you very much for your services. It will be difficult to have engineers that we hire full-time basis when the program is low, because it's cyclical, goes up and down, as we know. And then if we hire a full-time engineer, what are we going to do when the program is low? We don't have enough work to keep them busy. So this is a good alternative. This is not just Thurston County approaching this. In my past life, that was a way as to how we manage the up and downs of the construction costs and of the construction program. So this is really a good way to manage that, the workload, as well as give the flexibility to Public Works to, task those professional firms with the specific tasks. The task can be vary from full engineering services to just specific engineering needs that perhaps we don't have the expertise in-house. Geotechnical, hydraulics, name it, or structural. And in fact, some of the consultants did the design on the fish barrier passage culverts that we did last year, because it requires a specific set of skills. So this request, again, is for you to consider to increase the ceiling of those contracts from $500,000 to $1 million with those engineering firms, and also a request for authorize the director to extend an additional 20%. I'd recommend that you may consider only 5% to give the director, given the magnitude of the contracts, because right now, if this item is approved, they could have in the upwards of probably $9 million in consultant services. So a 5% additional contingency, I believe, is appropriate. If there is an additional need for additional money, then we will ask the department to come back and give us a report as to how the consultant firms have been managed in the deliverables.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make sure we change that to 5%.
Okay, that's already been said.
Yeah, well,
But that's,
we need to change it on the,
Yeah, we'll change it.
if we agree.
questions?
No.
Well, I agree with the 5%. I don't have a problem with that. But my question is, this is, lot treatment has the same issue. They don't have these types of engineers and consultants on staff, so they routinely go out and hire the expertise to take care of a lot of the major contracts and business that they have to take care of with a huge machinery that they have. But increasing the authorization, is this the best business practice across the board?
I believe so, because as you may recall, we went through a request for proposals maybe over a year ago. Out of the request for proposals, we selected, I don't know, 9 firms? How many firms?
8.
8 firms. And so with that approach, really allow us to be more flexible in the type of work that we assign to these engineering firms, depending on the need of the construction program. Because otherwise, we'll be going up with that request for proposals for every single task, which is extremely time-consuming, it's not cost-effective. So this particular proposal, at least from my point of view, does make sense.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thumbs up?
Yep.
For 5%?
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 7. We're winding down. Number 7, the Commissioners and Counties Manager items. Public hearing.
This proposal before you, this is a follow-up to a briefing that you received last week. For your consideration is to set the public hearing for Tuesday, February 19, 2019 at 3 in the afternoon, or shortly thereafter, for you to receive public testimony on a proposed franchise agreement with the Consolidated Communications, also known as a YCOM. And this proposal, as it is for 10 years franchise agreement.
Questions?
Good.
You
Good.
Good. That takes care of that. And item 15, County Manager will review the Board of Commissioners schedule. That's always enlightening. And then we have a 3 p.m. public hearing.
Yeah, this public hearing is for you to receive public testimony on proposed changes to the county code related to the Office of Public Defense. Late last year, you received a briefing, Commissioner Hutchins, Commissioner Edwards, from Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Office of Public Defense, in an attempt to align all the different ordinances and county codes to the already established law and regulations, both from the federal and the state governments. This is really a step to align all the already current practices in his office. Working without an ordinance creates an issue, so he has, at least for the last year, I know he has gone through an extensive work just to make sure that every single ordinance and every single portions of the code are aligned to state law.
Does he,
Go ahead.
these ordinances does he draft revisions to them, or does he work with Ms. Petrick? Sure.
No, he works with the civil division of prosecuting attorneys. Yeah.
Okay, and they've got a proposal to
Yep.
bring to us. Okay.
You okay?
Yep.
All right, that's done. That concludes the BoCC meeting and public hearing for January 29, 2019. What I'd like to do is, it's just about almost 10 o'clock, is bang out the next 3 items. I don't think they're going to take very long, and then we'll take a nice break.
What 3 items?
The proclamations and awards,
Yeah.
advisory boards and commissions, and then the briefing on public hearing decisions.
Suggestion that some of the audience in the room are here for the sidewalk item,
You want to move those up?
and I believe they need to leave by 10:30, so you may consider.
Let's do that. Let's take a break now then, and when we come back, we'll start with the one of those commissioner items then. All right, it's 10 o'clock. We'll call it at 10. We'll call it at 10, and we'll be back at 10:10. Please, 10:10. Thank you. All right. Will you give me a countdown or a thumbs up? Okay. Welcome back. Again, this is January 22nd, 2019, and we're continuing on with the agenda setting. And we've done that piece. Now we're moving into a whole other list of stuff on this sheet. We're going to jump down to commissioner items to assist some folks in the audience that need to be heard and then get on with life. So, any questions before we begin? Nope.
No, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. Allow me to frame the issue. Back in January 4, 2018, you received a letter from Mr. Phil Owen. He's the Executive Director of Sidewalk, and he's in the audience. And through the whole letter, the bottom line up front was requesting not just to the Board of County Commissioners, but also Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater Councils to fund an additional $40,000 by February, and also a commitment from all the local governments to fully fund the operating costs moving forward into the future. And this letter outlines the services related to the coordinated entry as mandated by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. You also received a letter on January 16, 2019, and this is just specifically to you. It was co-signed by Senator Sam Hunt, that's the 22nd Legislative District, Representative Beth Dolio, 22nd Legislative District, and Representative Lori Dolan, the 22nd Legislative District. You also received a letter from an email from Carolyn Cox, and she's a council member for the city of Lacey. And they were considering also how they can probably help sidewalk organization as long as the county continues to support that. As a matter of framework, the county does not have a direct contract with sidewalk related to the coordinated entry. The contract the county has is with the Family Support Center. And the Family Support Center hired sidewalk organization to provide, I believe it's coordinated entry related to adults. And so I just want to make sure that it's framed on those terms because, again, the county does not have a contract directly with sidewalk related to this particular program. Last week, you reviewed this information. This request, and through the conversation, you asked your Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter, she's here, to give you a little bit of perspective in terms of some of the financial aspects of this organization, because I believe some of the questions that you had last week was the sense of urgency of this situation, and perhaps what has occurred that had led this organization to come to where they are right now financially. And also, Mr. Phil Owen would like to give you his side of the story, and I believe he has a PowerPoint presentation.
Now, I don't want to, I invited Phil and his entourage to come to the table. Was that premature, or did Shelley want to address this first?
You know, I believe that probably Shelley can probably address after the fact, give him,
Okay.
Mr. Owen, an opportunity, maybe 5 minutes, no longer than that, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Is there a clicker for the presentation?
And is that microphone on?
I don't, is it? It's, okay. Do I need to hold it closer?
Well, probably.
No, just put it on the table, it's fine.
Okay.
And if anybody else is going to speak, identify yourself, please, and make sure you pass the microphone so everybody at home can hear us. Thank you.
Yeah. With 5 minutes, we may not all have an opportunity to speak, but
Okay.
I've invited Jill Esbeck as a MSW, serves as our operations
Jill.
director and co-founder at Sidewalk. Kyle Gitchell manages our database, does our data analysis, and recently is now our backup for bookkeeping. Kyle has a previous career, 8 years in Army intelligence as a data analyst and 2 years in loss control in the corporate world. So since we sent out the letter, there's been a lot of questions. first, how did this happen, and what do you need? What are the other jurisdictions doing? And then some of the details about the management, like what are we doing to resolve the backup for a bookkeeper issue, and I've just introduced Kyle. Where we're at right now, I'll just start off before going into the presentation. We have two critical needs that we've got to overcome in order to continue moving forward with our coordinated entry program. We have run ourselves into an emergency, and we're needing support with about $40,000 to make it through the month of February. And then we've got to address the deficit that drove us into this spot. We've been trying to do too much with too little, particularly in our coordinated entry program, and we need some stable foundation of financial support to be able to continue it and have that be successful in the future. So just a quick overview on coordinated entry. Before our coordinated entry program started, in 2011, this is what the adult system looked like from the perspective of someone on the streets. It was a chaotic runaround, and this was an unmanaged system. And since 2011, when we opened, we have gradually worked over time to recruit all of these partners to participate through a centralized referral process, and built out a system that has sort of a standardized process for people coming in through the doors. We refer for rapid rehousing, for emergency shelter, for permanent supportive housing programs in both the mainstream adult system as well as for the veterans programs. And then through the community care center, we coordinate with behavioral health, healthcare, and employment services. Besides the referral process, this is important to know, is that this is also a mechanism for system change. That whenever new regulations roll out from HUD, or if you want to take our community in a new direction, this centralized process allows us to work with our partners to make the necessary changes to the system. And just as an example, in 2017, we had to roll out, based on new guidelines from HUD and the Department of Commerce, a process where we were referring to all of these partners based on people's risk of death on the streets or vulnerability or severity of need, as opposed to when they first applied. As you can imagine, working through all of those various programs to bring them on board with this process was a very complicated and time-intensive process working with them. So change management within one organization is a challenging thing. We're talking about change management within many organizations. And that is one of the drivers of our cost in coordinated entry, is this tremendous amount of work to manage the system together. The second is we see a huge volume of folks. People experiencing homelessness in Thurston County visited Sidewalk 5,200 times in the last year. We see over the last 3 years, on average, we've seen a little under 1,200 brand new people to the system. And our process for bringing them into the system involves an assessment, a sort of a going over all of the various programs in the community and their services and rules and those things. It makes for a pretty intensive process for each of those 1,200 people. Alongside this, and we're just sort of generally proud to share this, we've been last several years moving between 250 and 300 people off the streets into homes through our own rent assistance programs is a tremendous success. And for all of that together, to manage the system, to make the referrals through the system, and to move all these folks out into homes, our average expenses per year for our total organization over the last 3 years is just $577,000. We don't have a giant budget, we're not a big organization, but we produce very large results with what we have. I won't go into all the details of all of our projections and things that we've got in these slides because there's not a lot of time, but the program, our coordinated entry program in particular, costs us a lot more to run than the $30,000 in public funding that we receive every year. And we have struggled to hang on tight through rough times. We don't like to be the organization that's coming forward doing exactly what we're doing right now about making emergency requests, and I'm afraid that we waited too long. One of the challenges that we've got is that as our funding on hand has diminished because of running a program that costs more than what we've got, we've dwindled down into a very narrow cash flow margin. And we're going to share in some of these slides what the volatility of our income looks like from things like private foundation grants. can be as low as $45,000 a year and as high as $168,000 a year. And the bulk of that we actually find out about in the very last week of the year. So that we came in the last year, we came in $27,000 under what we were hoping for in private foundation grants, combined with some of the human error that I described in the letter. By the last week of the year, we realized that we were in very deep trouble. We had our letter out to the community just a few days later. So I apologize for the short notice on that. We have been trying very hard to hang on tight and to not have to come to you with this request. And I honestly, I think it was a judgment error that we didn't come earlier.
Is that it?
Last bit, what the other jurisdictions are doing. So we met with the Lacey City Council during a work session last week. They did not take an official vote because they were in work session, but they expressed unanimous support for the veterans component of our program. That program makes up about a third of our deficit in coordinated entry. It's $55,000. And Lacey pretty clearly is going to bottom line that program for us. They'll work with us to find other funding sources, but they'll make sure that we have the money there for that. I'm pretty clear the council will offer the funding directly if it's necessary. We're meeting with the Tumwater City Council later this evening, and we've been in communication with Olympia City Council members and are anticipating an invitation to the city. Olympia City Council is very supportive of our work. We've been very engaged with them recently with the Plum Street Village and the mitigation site as we're making referrals into those projects. They're a close partner.
Have you already met with Olympia?
We're expecting an invitation. We have not
Okay.
received that invitation yet.
Okay.
This has all been on fairly short time. So
Okay.
a request of the county is that if the three jurisdictions support us in making it through this, that we're asking Olympia and Tumwater to split the $40,000 immediate emergency. Lacey is pretty committed to supporting the $55,000 ongoing for our veterans program. And we're asking the county to grow our funding for coordinated entry by $94,000 a year to ensure that we're stable in the long run. And we're asking that you do that if the other jurisdictions also commit, that we do this together.
All right.
What was that dollar amount?
$94,000 per year.
And when did you expect you were thinking you might get that?
Well, it would be, we do a monthly reimbursement basis with the county, and right now that contract runs through Family Support Center. We could talk with them about running that through them, or however you all want to frame it up. If the emergency funding from the cities comes through, that floats us through February. We have our gala in March. So the decision on your part is not critical that it be made today. That we can see how the things shake out with the cities, and we don't need you to make the decision before February or March, but we would like to have a sense as to where you're leaning so we can let them know.
If I may, I'm Jill Asbeck. I'm the operations director at Sidewalk and have been with the organization since we began. I just want to highlight that we do run on this budget financially, but we also harness about $250,000 in volunteer support. We have 50 volunteers who do the direct service with all of the community and have developed this relationship with the community that people trust us, people believe that we are there to help, and everyone who is serving at Sidewalk is very proud of what we do and is very committed. And so I think that should be considered as well when you look at the whole infrastructure of who we are.
Okay. Thank you. I just want you to, I don't want you to be concerned that this is not an inquisition, but I know that we've got, I'm going to presume we have questions. I know I do.
Yeah.
What's next?
Certainly, I was caught by surprise, to be honest with you, because I believe the letter included a request of $40,000 among other different jurisdictions. Now the request has come to $94,000 a year. Just right off the bat, that will be an unrealistic expectation for you to have any leaning from the commissioners today, because we do not have the $94,000 available on the budget, if that is the direction the board has to come. So I just want to make sure the expectations are set clear. And also, So I will suggest to probably follow up on some, if you don't have any questions to them, maybe Shelley can follow up on some of the information that you requested last week.
I do have questions of Phil. Do you have questions of Phil? Do you?
No, go ahead,
Go
I'm
ahead.
wait.
Go ahead, Guy.
You mentioned wanting to address maybe steps or thoughts that you had about trying to, manage this situation in the future, because you alluded to certain missteps. You alluded to Kyle coming on board. Could you just elaborate? I've heard a little bit about it, but I think the three of us need to hear kind of what your plan is, what Kyle's role is, and what, kind of how this is avoided, the lateness of the requests, et cetera.
Do you want to? Sure.
So I'm Kyle Gitchell. I'm a data analytics specialist at Sidewalk, and have been working for the last month as last month and a half as the backup bookkeeper. And essentially the way that this came to the emergency situation that it is in is that we have been running at a pretty tight staffing level, had been aware that there was a necessity for some backup in the bookkeeping, but didn't really have the ability to provide that because we don't have the finances to be hiring on somebody to do that. And so when our bookkeeper needed to take some time off, I stepped into the role and just kind of stretched my responsibilities into that. And so going forward, this is the redundancy that we've built into that situation so that emergencies don't occur again, is having myself flex into that position, as well as establishing more communication with our board about our financial situation. We have created a finance committee with the board members and some of the staff to have this more regularly looked at, as far as like pulling up the profit and losses in our budget and analyzing that on a monthly basis with the finance committee and with the board treasurer. These are financial controls that had not been in place in the way that they should have been, which is, again, what caused the emergent situation and what we're doing to continue to be better towards the future and not run into an emergency like this again, is just having those controls in place and having that redundancy built into our systems on a day-to-day basis.
What's your background with respect to financial management?
So with respect to financial management, the 2 years I spent as a loss prevention supervisor, I did a lot of financial audits with managers. I worked for Rite Aid doing loss prevention, so I was in charge of doing loss audits for 35 stores up and down I-5. And so I got a lot of exposure to financial management in that. I've also got several credits within economics and the economic management with my degree. So just having an understanding of how money works and how to manage the books from those experiences.
Are you going to continue on? I mean, what is the bookkeeper coming back?
So the bookkeeper has returned to her regular duties. Right now, my role in that department has been double checking any of the work that's been going on and helping develop better controls around making sure that things are going in when they need to be going in, getting paid on time, and also doing some forecasting for what our budget and what our finances look like going into the future, so that we can see this stuff as best as we can coming up.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess my question, Kyle, how long have you been now affiliated with Sidewalk?
So I started with Sidewalk as a volunteer in March of 2017, and then I joined the AmeriCorps Vista program and worked as the operations assistant, helping to develop better processes for the volunteers and things last August, 2017.
So you're just stepping up to this audit type process from within, so to speak?
Yes, yeah. So I've been with Sidewalk since 2017 March in various roles within the organization.
Okay.
Kyle's been on payroll with us since August of 2018. And when we look at cross-training between different positions and people serving as backup for one another, we're not allowed to use Vista Corps members for that. They're not allowed to replace staff time. Their work is focused on capacity building. So we had this opportunity with Kyle to have him start cross-training with other members of the team starting in September. Sorry.
Okay. Hit it?
Go ahead.
So, Phil, you started off, you talked about the deficit, and my question is, what is the deficit, and how long have you been operating with a deficit?
So in 2011, Sidewalk opened as coordinated entry was our only program, and our first full year was funded by the City of Olympia. The state and federal mandates were pending at that point. The Family Support Center and Community Youth Services had been working for some time to develop coordinated entry in their systems, but there was no activity happening in the adult system. So Sidewalk was actually created for this in 2011 with funding by the City of Olympia, and our cost that year was $110,000. Following that, the county funded us at varying amounts that I think ran between high level about $55,000. And then the latest round, when they changed the contract system to move through Family Support Center, it dropped down to $30,000. Our cost for the program from the initial 110 has grown a little bit. A chunk of that was the opening up the Veteran Services Hub in Lacey. We're very passionate and very committed to that. Lacey is very passionate and committed to that as well. So I don't think like our request to you is not to carry that component of it. But the remainder of our program has grown from the 110 to somewhere around 140 or 50. And a lot of that has to do with the growing complexity of the system. Again, I mentioned about the switch to vulnerability-based referrals in 2017. That was a super heavy lift, not only for ourselves, but for all of our partners, and we had to support them through that. We're anticipating new regulations from HUD this summer around what's called a by name list. We call it our master list. And this is a data-intensive thing where we keep a centralized waiting list for the entire system. Anticipating those regulations, we actually already implemented that as we were switching to the vulnerability-based system. But with the new regulations coming out, we can never really predict all of the details associated with that and what kinds of changes are going to need to be made. So these kinds of things, as the requirements of coordinated entry grow, our program costs have grown along with that. We've done a pretty good job of containing that growth, both through our volunteer base that does the direct work with our participants, as well as internal management systems around things like lean and continuous improvement. One of the things that Kyle did for us when he was at Vista was to help us start moving towards becoming paperless. And that's eliminated a lot of error and a lot of waste around errors that helped us to contain those costs.
Very good information.
Yeah.
And I know that, I don't speak for the board.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to guess, it's a safe assumption that we support everything that Sidewalk does. But I'll rephrase my question. What's the amount of the deficit, and for how long have you been operating with a deficit?
Well, we've been operating at a deficit in that program since mid-2012. Our organization as a whole, like we've been able to out-fundraise that or write grants for it. We took a heavy loss in 2017, $108,000 deficit, posted a loss as an organization as a whole in 2017, $24,000 in 2018. We're projecting as an organization a deficit of I believe it was $79,000 for 2019.
Okay.
Say that again, for 2019?
Yeah, for 2019, $79,000. When we're already in a position of having cash that's insufficient to, our actual cash balance right now doesn't get us through February.
How did you, could I jump with the question?
Yeah.
How did you get from 108,000 deficit in 2017 and then only 24,000 in 2018?
We work hard at fundraising. We had some staffing changes and hired a couple of really brilliant folks in fundraising and volunteer recruitment and marketing. And our fundraising from one year to the next grew, one of them sitting behind me here, our fundraising from one year to the next grew by 35%. The thing I want to temper against that, I mentioned the fluctuation in private foundation grants. Applying for private foundation grants is a lot like going fishing, right? That you might over a period of time have an average, but you're going to have days that you don't have anything and days where it's a whole lot, right? And from one year to the next, we've seen it fluctuate again from 45,000 to 168 and down again. So our progress in fundraising, we work really hard at that, and we're going to keep making progress there. We do need to have sort of a minimum safe cash balance. We figure it's somewhere around $50,000 starting every month to account for those kinds of fluctuations in what happens with our private foundation grants. Our deficit has driven us down cash-wise below the risk level for those fluctuations.
You know, with that piece? Number two, you said Lacey voted to support, they voted to support, they're leaning towards supporting the veterans?
They weren't, yeah, they were in
Not
a
voted.
work session, so they did not take an official vote. Every single member of the Lacey City Council expressed their support and their commitment to seeing our veterans program funded, and I am confident that they will take that vote. It is contingent on your support as well.
But however,
for the
if
part.
Lacey, and this needs to be worked out in the details, but I'm going to follow suit.
Yeah.
I think my ideology, if they decided to give you a chunk of dough for the veterans, that is slated then for the Veterans Hub, it doesn't go anywhere else?
Yes.
And so if Lacey, if Olympia and Tumwater and the county said the same thing, does that help?
Yes, to be perfectly honest, if all the partners, if all the jurisdictions aren't there to help us through this, the help of any one of them is insufficient to keep our coordinated entry program going. So that's why when we talked with Lacey, they were very passionate about their support, and they also said we really need to see the county support the main coordinated entry program as well, or it's all kind of for naught.
Okay.
You know, if we did some cash flow projections, and if we get the emergency funding from Olympia and Tumwater, we make it through February, but we're still looking at probably, you know, having to close our doors in July. If we get that and the support for our veterans program from Lacey, we could make it through to maybe September or October. The piece that keeps our program whole and stable is also having your support, that all of them together, we can pull our cash balance back up above the $50,000 minimum safe level, and potentially in the future start looking at setting aside small amounts for reserves to make ourselves stable.
I only have two more questions at this point. I'll be done and a little bit up. My budgetary philosophy is at home, if we don't eat it, we don't buy it. It doesn't always work out that way. So you had said that you're doing too much with too little.
Yeah.
Where would you cut back? What would you do
Yeah.
to get back into restraint? Because they had that schematic. Would that look differently then with changes that you may make internally?
Yeah, without additional ongoing support, we would unfortunately have to close our coordinated entry program. We would be laying off most of our staff. And if we did that, I think as an organization, we would like to preserve our rent assistance programs, be very, very, very tight, but we'll probably maybe squeeze through the next couple of months and then be able to start working towards stability again. And possibly even in the future, our projections showed that possibly might be able to accelerate our housing placement rate a little bit, because we're not carrying the burden of a program that's costing us a lot more than what we're bringing in for it. That's where, like, I have to look at this from my board of directors' eyes. And if we've got one program that's dragging us down into the ground, they're going to want me to cut the rope on it. And I believe that this program is far too critical for our community. We've done a lot of work over the years to bring the system together into a coherent whole. And there's a lot more work to be done, but I think we've created a good process.
Okay. And I'm glad you pointed out and acknowledged that the decision's not needed today, because I don't think a decision will be made today. But is there other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Phil, you mentioned in your letter on January 4th, it was about 40,000. I'm wondering, now we're up to 94,000. What happened between when you wrote that letter to today? Because that's kind of, I think, catching us off guard a bit.
Yeah. I think I shared in that letter as well, and it may not have been spelled out clearly enough. I believe I shared the program cost at the time is about $178,000. We only received $30,000 in public funding currently for that. So that's the deficit that drove us into the $40,000 emergency. So the $40,000 is a one-time thing, and we're not asking the county for that assistance. We're actually asking the county to help out with the deficit that drove us there. And that's the question everyone has, is how do we avoid this in the future? Without that ongoing funding, we cannot avoid this.
So you would expect the county to put in $94,000 and have that go as on funding or continual funding, not one-time funding?
Yeah, for context, Thurston County in homeless services is often compared to Kitsap. Kitsap has a roughly similar population size. They also have roughly similar entry rates into the homeless service system. and they are funding their coordinated entry system as a whole at $300,000. And if you broke out the entry rates in Thurston by subpopulation, Sidewalk's got about 2/3 of the population. Our part in that would be $200,000 a year. Our coordinated entry system as a whole in this community is woefully underfunded. And Sidewalk is the, you know, our program is the largest among the three, is struggling the hardest with it.
No, Rob.
Just to
Yeah,
be,
jump
well,
in first.
I just wanted to point out that, just to be fair, that your letter was said, in order to keep this vital program open, we need 40,000 by February and a commitment from local governments to fully fund operating costs moving forward. So I don't think you blindsided us with that,
Oh, no.
that secondary issue. We've just, it's something we got to look at long term.
Robin?
So I don't know, Phil, if my question's for you or if it's really for Shelley, but wasn't there an RFP process to provide the CE services in the community? So your organization put in a proposal and that proposal was accepted? How, and if it wasn't through some type of a bid process, then how did your organization get selected to provide the services?
In the last RFP round, a set-aside was created in advance of the RFP for coordinated entry. It was a set-aside of $100,000, and honestly, and it came with also the discussion about centralizing all the contracts under Family Support Center. At Sidewalk, we were informed of the $100,000 and then discouraged from applying for more. And it was frustrating for us because at that time we had been funded at about, I believe it was about $30,000 in document recording fees, but then we also had $15,000 in CIP funds. So for us, it represented a net loss of $15,000 a year.
Okay, and the other questions I have are for
But
staff.
the question remains,
Yeah.
I believe. You provided a proposal as part of the RFP that you will be providing services to a certain dollar amount. So within the purely procurement process point of view, and we just had a discussion in terms of consultant services, when somebody provides a proposal to provide certain services, so what happened from that commitment based on the proposal that you submitted versus where we are right now?
Our financial situation changed. And honestly, in the nonprofit world, when you hire a contractor to build roads, they put together a budget that looks like their cost plus the profit margin, and the expectation usually is that the person funding the roads is going to pay the cost of building the roads. You might have multiple bidders. But in the nonprofit world, we understand that we are serving a critical need in the community and that we may not get everything that we need in order to do that. And we have to make tough decisions in that light. We believed that we could fundraise our way out of this. We believed that we could hold on tight through hard times. We've struggled. But our program is not funded at its cost. It hasn't been since the City of Olympia first funded us. And we've not been able to make it through the way that we had hoped.
Any other questions? Over here, question?
I have a couple questions for Shelley.
Okay, yeah.
I might have one other question, maybe for the county manager.
Well, I've got one for the county manager and for Shelley as well. So do you want to bring Shelley up then?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Kyle and Jill, thank you very much. Bless you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Shelley
morning.
Slatter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services.
Go ahead, your questions.
All right, go ahead, Gary.
Well, this is probably to both you and Shelley, but the last sentence in our letter from our elected representatives here, we urge you to provide additional funding for this important community resource. Was there any amount attached with that recommendation anywhere that they're expecting us to provide? So at that
You're
point,
talking about this letter?
Yes.
No, I think it's highlighting the same dollar amounts that you receive on the letter from Sidewalk for January 4th. There is not
Okay.
In 2 days, we've heard officially the first
We're
time the
going to need some more,
94,000.
I think we're going to need some more information.
Any questions of staff? I have a question. It was stated that we don't have a contract with Sidewalk, but we do with FSC.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's two questions. What is our contract with FSC? How's that spelled out regarding coordinated entry? And if we are to contribute some money to Sidewalk, does that create a contract or an MOU then with Sidewalk?
Our contract for the coordinated entry system is with our lead contracted agency, the Family Support Center of South Sound, and Trish Gregory is present in the audience if you have any specific questions for her in terms of their organization. But the Family Support Center is ultimately accountable for the entire system, and they subcontract with Community Youth Services for Youth and Sidewalk for single adult survivors, or excuse me, single adults, with the exception of survivors of domestic violence.
Okay, because no matter what happens, coordinated entry won't go away.
That's correct.
We'll still have it with Sidewalk, or we'll have it with FSC or somebody. Because my main concern is not having anybody fall through a gap, period. Again, I don't know where these discussions or decisions are going to lead yet. It's a bit too early, and I'm glad that Phil said we don't have to decide today, because I know we won't. There's just a lot more information to dig into regarding systems. Let me just look at my notes real quick. Okay. Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
So just so I'm clear, if we had a ton of money and decided we wanted to do this, we would be giving money to Family Support Center, right? Because that's our contractual relationship.
That
we
is
don't have an
correct.
avenue to give money to Sidewalk directly if that were on the table.
We would have to create a new contract for that service, but we have set up the system so that we have one lead entity, and that is what the preference of the state is as well, that we have one lead agency for coordinated entry. So we look at it as an entire system. And part of that is also, as you heard from Phil today, the having to go to multiple different agencies to fund this one thing is exactly what part of the coordinated entry system is designed to prevent for people that we're trying to serve, by having one coordinated system for them to access housing and shelter resources.
So in terms of the relationship between Family Support Center and Sidewalk, how much supervisory authority is already built into that contract or that relationship? Does Family Support Service have the obligation to be managing, overseeing Sidewalk's work?
Yes, they do. It's in their contract language to monitor and ensure full compliance of their contract with the county, and thus our contract obligations to our cognizant funding agencies, including HUD and Washington State Department of Commerce.
Can we hear from Ms. Gregory about this?
It's a good question. Well, and while she's coming up, I'll ask this question. If we were to do, as Lacey is suggesting, for example, we will donate X amount of dollars, but we want it to go to Program A or Program C or Program B, would that necessitate a different wording in an MOU to direct the funds specifically or not?
If Sidewalk makes a direct request to the City of Lacey, then that would be up to the City of Lacey as to however they wanted to handle that contract relationship. But we as the county and our Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention have acted as the lead funding agency on behalf of many of our local jurisdictions to better coordinate all of our funds. So our preference would be to continue that, but of course, cities may contract however they like. But we would encourage them to be looking at the entire system.
Okay, Robin?
So this is back on the RFP, kind of a slant. When the request for proposals was issued for these services, were there proposals other than the Sidewalk proposal for this particular service?
There was about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. There was 2 other agencies at the time that I think did apply to do that. But but the decision was made to issue the agreement with Sidewalk. That was prior to the contracting mechanism we have now with Family Support Center. At that time, it was 3 individual contracts, so the single adults was awarded to Sidewalk, but there were other applicants at the time. And our RFP process is scheduled to begin in February with a starting contract date of July 1. So currently, there is funding still in the coordinated entry contract with Family Support Center, including an allocation for Sidewalk to continue that through June 30th of 2019.
Okay, but at this time, there's a plan to go out for a renewed RFP, if you will, for services, and you may or may not select Sidewalk as the successful vendor. Is that an accurate, assumption of what's coming up?
Somewhat accurate. Typically, we do a set aside for coordinated entry because that is one of our requirements that we have as a county to provide that system. So the decision makers, the commissioners, can decide to increase the allocation for coordinated entry based upon need or request, should that come forth in the RFP process. As far as who the recipient providers are, that is at the discretion of the Family Support Center, and they work very closely as a team. The 3 agencies work closely, and they have an expanded coordinated entry team, and I'll let Trish Gregory further comment on that.
Great. Just
if necessary.
I'm trying to get clarity on whether or not CE is actually, I guess I don't quite understand the term set aside. There's a set aside. Does that mean there's a set aside for a specific provider, or there's a set aside amount and you go through a process to select who those providers are?
There is a set aside for the coordinated entry system, and the requirement of the coordinated entry is that it must serve all the populations in the community. And so it does not specify, our process, RFP process, does not specify who those partners are beyond our contract obligation that we have with the lead agency, so Family Support Center.
Go ahead, Gary.
I don't want Phil and his organization to leave here thinking that we're not not concerned or willing to help. But earlier in the month, when we were briefed about this in a public meeting, we were talking about trying to fill a gap with other jurisdictions of $40,000. Is that right?
Yeah, and that was the initial request, and I believe that was the initial thought.
Right,
at the beginning.
So we were willing to try and figure that one out, but now we've got a whole nother problem set, it looks like, as far as ongoing funding, but a considerably more amount of money than what we'd originally figured on, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Clarify.
And whenever you're ready, I have a recommendation for
Okay,
you.
and Ty's got a question.
Well, I just had questions for Trish, because I'm not clear about what you, as the sort of, you meaning Family Support Center, as the organization that has the responsibility for the overall system, how much how much oversight could you have, or do you have, or can you not have? I want to understand the parameters of that relationship with your subcontracted agency of Sidewalk, or whoever, CYS, et cetera.
Yep, for both organizations, we will do an annual monitoring, similar to the county's monitoring of the Family Support Center for our contracts. We meet with Sidewalk and CYS on a monthly basis, and at times we're meeting more often than that. Programmatically, we're responsible for ensuring that they're following the policies and procedures that we developed for the coordinated entry system. Financially, we're responsible for monitoring their invoices that they're submitting to us to make sure that we're in compliance with eligible expenses for the program. We've not yet done a monitoring of Sidewalk or community youth services. Ironically, we're about about 18 months, or I'm sorry, about 15 months into being the lead organization, and we're speaking about monitorings and what process we were going to utilize for doing that at our previous coordinated entry meeting. So the organizations were aware that we planned to do monitorings, but we had not yet implemented any monitoring.
So you'd been meeting them monthly and reviewing their invoices, but you hadn't gotten to the annual review.
Correct.
Is that a summary of what your answer
Correct.
is? Okay.
And I will also say some of that is directed by the county's monitoring of Family Support Center and where we are in our process. And so currently we are monitoring agencies, including Sidewalk.
Were you, during these monthly meetings, did you see some of this coming, or did you have concerns about the way they were going about business, or?
We were caught completely unaware of the situation of their finances. That was not something that had been shared with us as a partner organization. So we were not aware that Sidewalk was going to be requesting these funds, and we received a copy of the letter after it had already been submitted to the commissioners.
And one more question that's been kind of floating around, I think, inside of a lot of our questions is, do you see alternatives to, are there alternatives to the proposal Sidewalk is making? They're asking us for, these amounts of money to keep their doors open. I've been asking in every meeting, what's the alternative? What is Plan B if that didn't happen?
We do have a Plan B. As the lead organization, Shelley had shared previously that we're responsible for the overall system, and we take that responsibility really seriously. We're required to have a coordinated entry system. Both Community Youth Services and Family Support Center are solid, financially stable organizations, and we are committed to ensuring that coordinated entry continues regardless of that Sidewalk. We hope that Sidewalk, we've worked together to build this system for the last several years, and we're committed to supporting Sidewalk and continuing forward. However, the challenge is that we do need to invest in our coordinated entry system as a whole, and it's concerning to have a large portion of funding committed to one organization when the entire system needs to be successful and needs the funding to continue forward. There are some alternate options. They would not be easy. It would not be something that we want to see happen, but there are other organizations that could potentially step in to fill the role of the coordinated entry lead for the single population. I've not yet spoke with those organizations, but there's been interest expressed in the past. For Sidewalk individually, there's an opportunity to reorganize how they do coordinated entry. And I've spoken with Phil about this already, so he's aware of some of the ideas that we put forward for that. And I think cutting costs first before asking for additional funds is always prudent when you're working in a nonprofit organization. And looking at the structure of the coordinated entry system and what positions are needed to fully function. In my opinion, the coordinated entry system shouldn't be the core of your organization. It should be one program that is supported by the organization. For both Family Support Center and Community Youth Services, we have paid staff that we're utilizing. Sidewalk has developed a system where they have volunteers doing the primary amount of the intake and assessment work. There's opportunities to change that model. It's an amazing model that they have now with the volunteers supporting the work of the organization, but the way that it's managed right now and for the cost that it's managed, they're not able to provide the same level of service that Community Youth Services and Family Support Center are related to the amount of hours that coordinated entry is available.
Do you have another question? Because I do.
Oh.
I'm going to wait.
The interim plan, if Sidewalk is not able to acquire the full funding that they need to move forward, the interim plan would be that Family Support Center would utilize one of our current Washington Service Corps, I lost the name for a moment, I apologize, who's currently been serving in the role of a coordinated entry intake and assessment specialist for all three populations. For Sidewalk, Family Support Center, and Community Youth Services. She works at each of those sites at least once a week. We have another Service Corps member that we potentially could shift to being an intake specialist, and/or we could potentially pay staff with the remaining funds in the sidewalk contract to complete coordinated entry, intake, and assessment with a partner such as the Community Care Center. I'm not indicating that that would be the best long-term plan. We certainly, as a stopgap measure to ensure that there was still intake and assessment available, that's what we would do. At the same time, we'd be looking at what community partners do we have in the single population that are interested, are financially stable, and ready to take on the challenge of coordinated entry, because it is definitely a challenge.
An alternative down here, that's where I was going to go, but I didn't want to go there, but the door's been opened. So no matter what happens with Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, in the county, and we have a senator and 2 representatives weighing in on this in support, but no matter what we do, relationships are going to change, organizations are going to change and morph, systems are going to change, and my major concern is the folks that need these dadgum services, and they need them to go without fail, without a gap in there, without any time constraint. So my question is, if sidewalk doesn't get additional funding from any organization, how soon would FSC be able to step up and fill that gap? How soon would it take? Days, weeks, months?
We could immediately fill the intake and assessment portion. There are a million intricacies to the coordinated entry system, as evidenced by some of the slides that Phil shared with us earlier. And we definitely, it would not be a completely smooth. Family Support Center is able to take on every single component of that. But we could keep the system moving, remain in compliance with HUD, and ensure that we're moving towards a final resolution that will be in the best interest of everyone.
Okay, and I'm not foreshadowing. I just want to have all this information before I decide, and these guys need that same information. And it's kind of troubling you didn't know this until after the fact as well. But that's that. Romero, where do we go from here?
I'd like to provide a recommendation for you to consider. The county has an obligation to provide coordinated entry, and that is the obligation that we have, and that is the obligation that we'll continue to have in the future. But also, you have stated that you value what the sidewalk organization provides to the citizens, and you have been very clear on those statements. But the request has changed, and that puts the county in a very difficult situation, I believe. And there is, I believe, there is many different dynamics as to perhaps how we need to move forward. I do believe that perhaps you may consider looking at that request, and maybe in the spirit of cooperation, maybe you can request your Director of Public Health and Social Services if there is an opportunity for the county to participate on the $40,000 with the other jurisdictions. And I don't know the dynamics, but that might be a good way to address the immediate need. The long-term need, I believe there is a larger question that requires different context and different conversation. You heard that we're in the process of going through an RFP process. And the RFP process and the assignments of that, which includes the coordinated entry request for proposals, will be in place, has to be in place by July 1st, 2019. So, and again, there's different dynamics. At that point, you will have the opportunity to see if there's any other providers that can probably meet the needs of the single adult part of the population coordinated entry. I recommend that at this point you idle on the request that you received today of $94,000 a year from this point forward until you have a much better opportunity to assess the request for proposals and have a more holistic view of those services down the road. But I do encourage the commissioners to, as your Director of Public Health and Social Services, to see if there's an opportunity for the county to participate on the $40,000, which I believe is the immediate need.
One final question. If the commission decides to contribute the $40,000 the
A
sidewalk?
portion of the 40,000.
A portion of the, okay, a portion of the 40,000. Thank you for the clarification. Sidewalk continues. If it doesn't, and we're depending on FSC, that would necessitate increase of funding to FSC.
That is correct. If you choose to apply additional funding to coordinated entry, then the mechanism to do that would be through our existing contract for
Okay.
them to subcontract with Sidewalk.
I presume so. I just want everybody to hear that and know that. Okay. Thank you. Anything further?
For your consideration, my suggestion.
Okay.
I would like to go along with the county manager's suggestion that we have Shelley look at what is possible within her resources and get back to us when.
As soon as feasible, there's an opportunity for you to consider participating with the other jurisdictions on the 40,000. Because I believe the other jurisdictions also might be considering the 40,000 to partner on that to address the immediate need again.
And the question is what money or mechanism we have available. Because I just remind you at the last meeting, Ms. Campbell was starting to explain that there wasn't money in this place, but there'd be potentially money in another place, but she was cut off, or we postponed that, and I never really got to hear. Okay. And so is that what you're asking, Shelley? I just need to know what the options are, or we're going to defer that to a different, someone's going to report back to us?
They report back in terms of, because the budget is set aside, whether there's any flexibility with the allocated budget for Shelley to come back and say, and propose to you, out of the $40,000, how much money we could contribute to that. Really, that is the question.
I was trying to clarify that what you're asking her is kind of what we were asking Robin last week.
Right.
Okay.
And the cities are waiting for the county to weigh in?
That is correct. That is my understanding.
And being the cities are waiting for the county to weigh in, time is of the essence, I guess. And I don't know, can we do something to allow the county manager to work this out for us and come back with some recommendation at our next, I don't know if it's our next get-together, we're all legal. We want to do this in public like we're supposed to.
Go ahead,
I
Robin.
believe that there is capacity, and I'll turn to Shelley too, but I believe you have capacity for as much of that as you choose to do. There is sufficient fund balance in that fund that you can tap into. If we had to, we could do a budget amendment in the spring, but you could move faster than that because all the money won't be going out before you could do a budget amendment. So in my opinion, you've got capacity, and I'll ask Shelley if she would concur with that.
Yes, we do have sufficient fund balance if you choose to fund a portion or all of Mr. Owen's request today. As I shared with you last time, in the past, you have set aside $100,000 annually for emergency funds for organizations that encounter an experience such as you've heard today, an unexpected, unforeseen, preventable financial issue. Those funds were expended already for this current funding year that we're in. So therefore, any amount that you do decide to fund reduces the amount of the RFP that we have available for the rest of the funds starting in the February process. So we would reduce the amount by that, which would impact other organizations.
That is one option. Again, you could amend your appropriation and
Right.
tap into fund balance. So
I just don't know how
you've got some options.
how we define emergency, because it's been going on in the deficit for 7 years. It's not unforeseen or it's not an emergency. Because I think that is meant for an emergency for people on the street, like I'm not making myself that clear perhaps, but I'm not sure if that fits that mold or that definition. That's just food for thought. I don't need an answer. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess I'm not in favor of dipping into our ending fund balance because that affects bond ratings and a lot of other things that take place in the future. But I would entertain a recommendation from the county manager even now as to what we could do if we've got something, because we've got other jurisdictions, it sounds like, that they're waiting to make a decision based on what our decision is. And the county manager has been in contact with these individuals.
Right.
Excuse me.
I would just clarify that this is not general fund. This would be out of the housing fund.
Right, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right.
I just
So
wanted, when you
it's
said,
not as
earlier you
much
said
concern.
that fund, and I was hoping for the new commissioner, you could just clarify. You're saying
Right.
there's a,
It would be, you have, it's Fund 1400, it's a fund that you use for housing and community services. That's the fund you would pay for this out of. Whether we reduce the current allocation, what's appropriated for the current allocation that will go on the streets in February, or you commit to an increased appropriation so that you could keep that whole and do this, either way, it would all come out of Fund 1400.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Romeo, will you wrap it up again for us, please?
Yeah, and if you're looking for a number, my recommendation based on what you've heard from Robin Campbell, considering the city of Olympia is already thinking and participating on the Veterans Hub, the city of Olympia,
Lacey.
Lacey, thank you,
yeah.
Lacey, and the
Olympia,
city of
yeah,
Olympia and city of Tumwater will consider based on the county's position. I will suggest that probably the county to participate with $20,000 of the $40,000 request. And I think that's at this point adequate. And moving forward, I strongly encourage the commissions to look and concentrate on the program itself and the coordinated entry program itself, and not necessarily an individual outfit or an individual provider, because that's not the obligation that we have. The obligation that we have is making sure that the citizens who are in need of those programs are fully covered. So as we move forward with the RFP, that is, I believe, that we need to concentrate is on the program and how we can make the best out of those programs and the funding that we have. That will be my suggestion to you, commissioners.
And if we do that, the money goes to FSC.
To whomever wins the RFP.
Oh, okay, you're saying put up that 40 for an RFP?
No, for
No,
the
yeah, but-
for the 20,000, the immediate need, yes,
Right.
it will be an increase to Family Support Center.
Right, thank you, go ahead.
And I guess I would just expedite this by saying, I would say now, whatever it takes, I'd either make a motion or a thumbs up or whatever you need to get this rolling, to kind of get a solution.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to do that right now, but I don't
So,
know what
go
the
ahead, I'm sorry.
appropriate level is.
I am too, because I know that I've talked to the mayors of each of the cities, and it's very difficult on short time frame to get 4 different governments coordinated, as we're all seeing, and we see and so I just, if this is what the commissioners want to do, it makes sense to do it.
And I disagree. I would like to give it a week to food for thought and obtain more information about alternatives. Again, my bottom line are the folks that need this stuff, and I'm concerned about, and I don't want to, there's no nice, I can't think of a nice way to say it without being derogatory, and that's throwing good money after bad. I want this to be a seamless process, no matter which way it goes, and I don't have to deal with this again. I want to have faith and trust that the folks are being taken care of at the very base level with whomever the contract is with. So if my seatmates want to give thumbs up now, that's fine. I'll maybe give thumbs up, but I want to do it next week with more time to think about it.
So I
That's
believe
just me.
I believe there's 2 commissioners, they
you
decided
go.
to move forward, so let's go with $20,000 commitment, and I will inform the cities today about your decision.
Very well. We'll prepare an amendment to the contract to bring forward to commissioners next week.
And
Or
again,
as soon as feasible.
the request of $94,000 per year at this point, you're going to defer that to see how the RFP process will go through this year.
And for the record, I wasn't saying no. I was just saying I want to decide in a week and not now.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, that ate up an hour. Jeepers. All right, thank you. We're going to move right along. Staff? Break? You okay? Okay, we're going to keep on moving. I was told the proclamations, and the proclamation will take 30 seconds. Let's just do that real quick, and then I'll jump down again.
Okay. Lavanita Bomar, clerk of the board, Thurston County.
Lavanita Bomar is walking to the microphone.
I am. We have one proclamation ready for February. That proclamation is African American History Month. It's in the process of being signed. As you can see, your packet has the proclamations for the rest of the year and sample proclamations, approved proclamations from 2018. So it'll give you an idea of what we approved and what you would like to continue to do for 2019. So there's the list, and that's my 18 seconds.
Go ahead, go.
And to save time, I guess I'd like to do the one proclamation, get that over with, and address this other information on the 29th.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I expected, just to address that one, that first
Okay.
one.
Thank you.
So that proclamation is good?
Is that
That
okay?
one's good,
Okay.
that one's good.
Okay.
And we'll discuss the remainder at a time when we have time.
Yes.
Thanks. Next, I'm going to skip the advisory boards and commissions. We can do that next time. There's nothing pressing date-wise or time-wise.
That is correct.
Okay, so we're going to hold that until next time. The briefing, public hearing, decision pending, is that a major one?
No, we don't have anything.
We have nothing, so that's done. Let me see, we also have, let's jump to number 4 on the commissioners' items, because that's going to take some time. Perhaps the home dollars model and discussion.
Is not item number 3? No.
Number 3, I circled it so I can't read it. It went right through. Number 3, home dollars.
And you have an attachment of this on your,
Is it a full-size sheet like that? Full?
yes, you should have one copy of yours.
Ta-da.
I got it, okay,
Like that.
I got it. Yep.
And again, this model was, I think you have seen at some point one version or another of this particular model. And it was, this model was created as a result of how we can take the home dollar distribution out of the CIP process. And that was decided last year by the board. And as a result of that, developed this model using the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council as a way to make the best possible decision as to how the home dollar should be allocated. This particular model was presented to the mayors, including some council members back in December, early December. And as a result of that meeting, there were 2 deliverables. It was 2 different paths that we needed to take. It was one, that we need to have really a structure in place to make sure this model works, just to understand all the different elected officials, their roles and responsibilities, which that requires an instrument, as we call it, the interlocal agreement. And that interlocal agreement to have in place among all the different cities and the county, it takes a while. And considering the RFP process needs to move forward, as you heard earlier, I believe the 2 deliverables of that meeting was 2 parallel process. Go ahead and use 2019 to develop an interlocal agreement that addresses this model. And secondly, as to how we can do somewhat of a hybrid approach in 2019, considering the obligation, the timelines that we have in front of us. Those are the 2 outcomes as a result of the meeting with the mayors again and some council members. And I believe the proposed hybrid for 2019, a proposal by, I believe, Commissioner Hutchins, was to use the context of the CIP for 2019. So bring the home dollars back into the CIP for 2019. And within that process, we may see an opportunity to perhaps to develop a technical review team, which is also part of this model. And the cities have already provided names as to who will participate in that technical review team. The technical review team will review the proposals as a result of the RFP process. We'll bring back to the CIP. The CIP has a recommendation, and the CIP will forward those recommendations for you, because you are the ultimate decision makers as a result of this process. While in 2019, Shell and I will start working on the interlocal agreement. They will outline the roles and responsibilities of this model. So that's the hybrid approach. Questions?
Gary, go ahead.
I have a question. I'm going to show it to you better than explain it. How come from draft project recommendations, this doesn't go up to final? Why does it come out of Thurston Thrives Council, comes right back into Thurston Thrives? How come it doesn't go to final project recommendations?
Because the draft project recommendations will go to the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council, where the elected officials will have the opportunity to hear the proposals from the application review team, the technical team, and themselves, as part of the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council, they will make a formal vote as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And that is the line that we have on top of it.
And they're not the final project recommendations? That isn't them?
No, that will be them, yeah.
So how come it just, I mean, why does it go back?
Because
Is
in
there-
here, in the application review team committee,
Yeah,
there is
yeah.
no elected officials involved in that process.
Although they came from the elected
So it may
officials
change.
here. But okay,
One more.
okay.
Well, it's staff of the jurisdictions.
It's staff, it's technical staff.
And you told me at one point that the review for Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council would be only the elected officials, or was it the whole council?
The whole council will have the opportunity to look at the proposals, but the elected officials will make the formal recommendation of the final projects to you. And that's what this bubble, as I call it, that's where the elected officials will formally endorse the final recommendations to you. Because I believe that was one of the key elements as to some of the elected officials would like to be part of that
To get their
decision-making
buy-in.
process.
So if I can understand, this is still, and you explained this to me, I think, in December, this is still the concept for the future, but this will be worked out over the course of this year for maybe 2020.
That is correct.
And we're going to use the CIP or HHSC for
Yeah.
2019.
For 2019, because the timelines that we have in front of us are so tight, that it will be an unrealistic expectation for us to develop an interlocal agreement, have the commissioners and the county councils approve before we go through the RFP, which needs to be in place by July 1st, 2014. I mean,
The RFPs
the selection.
for this go out next month.
Yeah. So that's the hybrid proposal to you, commissioners.
Okay. So is it decision time? Any other questions about the process, Gary or Ty?
No, I don't have any more.
Well, my only question is just, we can talk amongst ourselves, right? I mean,
Right.
Commissioner Hutchings, I would be, you've been involved in this for a while, so I would be deferential or interested to hear your perspective on it before we have to vote. I'd like to know kind of what your 2 cents is, because you've been in this deeper than I have, obviously.
Can he ask me questions?
Absolutely. We're taking notes.
I am one of the ones that brought this to the agenda, and I've been. This goes back a year, and I didn't want the monies to leave the CIP, and I'd like to have them back. And I know the elected officials that sit on the CIP, right on these tables, the elected officials wanted the money back, and those elected officials, some of them are the same that sit on here, and some are different.
Right.
But every city is represented, to include South County. And I know that this is what they would like, and it's what I would like, is to have those, the home dollars and the 2163 money back at the CIP level. And if we do it just for this year, that's fine with me, because CIP, when United Way was part of the CIP, they chose to continue their funding through this year, but after this year, they are leaving. They're not leaving, abandoning, but they are going to continue putting their money in to the same nonprofits to meet the basic needs, but they're doing it not under the brand name of CIP, they're doing it under United Way. It's a rebranding for United Way. So in essence, the CIP is going to cease to exist at the end of this year anyway. So it brings the dollars back for this year while this is being taken care of, and all the paperwork with the cities or different jurisdictions is hammered out. Then that money comes back for this year for the electeds to decide where it's going to go.
Okay.
But they decide, make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and then we out decide.
Since the board last year took an action in taking the home dollars outside of the context of the CIP, I will bring a motion for you to consider next Tuesday that will address 2 elements. the RFP process for the home dollars in 2019 will be managed within the context of the CIP. And also the motion will include a direction to the Director of Public Health and Social Services to work on an interlocal agreement in 2019 outlining the new model for the years to come. And I'll work on that motion for you.
Okay. It'll be for Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Okay. Any other questions? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I just didn't want to make a decision without hearing from,
Yeah.
a commissioner who's been through the CIP to make sure that you thought it was a good idea.
I fully support this. yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
Any questions or
No,
comments?
I got it.
Okay. There you go. You got 3 thumbs up now to move on until Tuesday. Well, that wasn't that bad. Let's do CSA, because we have Tara here. Are you here for that one? Okay. Can we do number 2 then, CSA? Building
Yes.
options?
This is, as a matter of background, commissioners, there is about 2,500 square feet of what we call empty space behind the triage facility, and as we call the CSA building. And over the last few months, we have seen many different options as to how that square footage could be utilized. Some of those options have already been met, and as a result of, I believe, in the last month, there is an opportunity. Perhaps the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization can use additional space to increase the already functions of the triage facility. Last week, you revisited that idea, and the Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, requested the commissioners to give her a week just to make sure the bond-related issues in which was purchased, this property to begin with, meeting the intended outcome. So, and also I have for you a proposed letter for your consideration attached in your packet. And I believe that is the letter of commitment the Thurston Mason BHO will need in order for them to apply for a grant that they will allow them to get money for those improvements.
So I've been in conversation with our bond counsel and bond advisor. They have said, what I don't have is a clear answer yet. So just putting that right out there. I don't have a yes, this is okay, or no, it's not. What I don't have yet that I keep pushing for is, does this fall under the 10% threshold? The answer that I keep getting back from them, they are much more interested apparently in looking at is the BHO a government entity or not? What they have provided is that in this situation, the BHO would be considered governmental. So as long as the BHO itself were running the detox center with BHO employees as a licensed certified provider, then we would have no concern whatsoever. However, since they are contracting that, then what they have asked me for, the bond counsel has asked me for a copy of the contract. I have gone back to them and said, can you just tell me if they meet the 10%? Because if they do,
Then that's
if they're
all you.
Yeah, then it doesn't matter, and we don't need to spend any more time in sorting all of that out. So that's where I'm at. I don't have a clear answer for you. I understand that the clock is ticking
Yes.
on the need to submit
For the grant.
a grant.
Yeah.
I am fairly confident, like 90%, 95% confident that it's going to fall under the 10%. So I think that you could cautiously proceed, and that I'm going to get an answer that says everything's going to be okay. That's kind of where I'm at, but I don't have that answer yet.
Is it possible, so depending on BHO contracting, it may be still considered governmental or not, depending on some of the
Depending
terms
on
of the
the
contract?
structure of the contract, yes, that's what they're telling
So it's
me.
getting really technical at this point?
Yes, it is.
All right, I got you.
Questions?
No, so I guess you and Mark were both right. Is that the way?
Write that down, Tara.
I'll take that.
So my recommendation is for you to
Funny.
consider signing the letter of support to this grant. That way we'll meet the timelines of the BHO to secure the grant. Now the next step will be whether they're successful in securing the grant to get into, and that point is another set of discussions with you. But at this point, I think is good for you to consider signing that letter, send that letter of support. It is a letter of support. It's not a binding document because the binding document comes later.
Right.
But I think it shows a commitment that at least the county is looking for this opportunity to coordinate with the BHO.
Questions or concerns?
Nope.
You all right?
I agree.
Thumbs up.
So I will circulate that letter for you, hopefully signed today, and I will forward that to Mark.
Thank you. Let's see, sustainability, that one's done. Shelley, are you here for another?
I'm at mediation.
How long will that take?
Less than 2 minutes.
Okay, then come on up. Let's get that one. See, like, I'd hate you just sitting around.
I'm here supporting.
Yeah.
Okay, come on, Chris. Let's get it going. It's 11:30.
All right, I'm here for you.
So this is a follow-up to the climate mitigation plan phase 2 the commissioners signed to participate with the other jurisdictions last year. TRPC has taken the lead on the phase 2. Now there is a requirement, at least that representatives from elected officials participate on a steering committee, and those are part of the scope of work as we stated in getting into a contract with TRPC. So the request before you is who would like to participate on the steering committee? One of you. There may be an alternate.
What's the time commitment?
The time commitment, I have it in here, is, can you find that information before I?
The steering committee for the climate mitigation plan meets
Every
roughly
other month.
monthly during the course of the project. It's an 18-month total window of time during which we'll be working on this. I believe for 2019, there are about 8 meetings on the agenda for this year because the first steering committee won't meet until February. In fact, that first meeting has been penciled in for February 6th at noon. And then it would subsequently meet roughly monthly, but there are, I think, 7 other meetings at least on the schedule drafted so far for 2019. There will be some additional meetings into 2020 as that plan comes to a conclusion.
Is noon the usual time that it's going to happen?
I think that will be discussed with the steering committee to determine whether that is a best time for the members of the steering committee, which would consist of the other elected official representatives from the 3 other local governments involved with this project, and then your staff. I'm one of the project staff people on this climate mitigation plan, and
Do you have an interest?
Michael Burnham from TRPC is here as well.
Well, I'm just trying to be fair with my seatmates is all. If you'll remember, I drew the least number of assignments, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, wait.
Is
I'm not going to
Commissioner
arm
Messer
wrestle with you
interested?
over it.
I mean, I'm already seeing like February 6th, I wouldn't be able to make it because I've got, I'm just concerned about scheduling.
Will you consider maybe Commissioner Edwards to be the primary and you the secondary?
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Yeah, I like that rather than paper rock scissors.
Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
Wow, that was quick.
Thank you very much.
Wait,
I think we
introduce
did it in
your
2
shadow.
minutes.
Introduce him. Come on.
Oh, this is Mike Burnham
Yep.
from the Thurston Regional Planning Council. He is the lead staff for Thurston Regional Planning Council on the project.
That's
Just
good.
to
I know
say,
people are watching.
before I'm the TRPC representative. Is there any need for that to connect to me or is it okay for Commissioner Edwards
It's
to?
not on my calendar.
There's no stricture about that relating to
Separate.
this project.
Okay, so it's good.
The decisions about the project will be made by that steering committee, the elected officials on the steering committee. They would come back to the commission as a recommendation from the
Okay,
steering
so
committee.
this is nothing.
So you'll get to decide on the strategic implementation strategy for Thurston County's implementation of those climate mitigation actions at a future
My
date.
point is just that it's not going to require him to be at a TRPC meeting that I'm already at, which would be a waste of time.
Yeah.
So you're saying no?
I do
Okay.
have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
do you always meet on that same day, that Wednesday, February 6th? I'm already on a board at
Oh.
that time.
Okay,
I'm
sounds
Busy
like
or with that?
SWAC, no, I'm
SWAC.
So,
No, that'll be up to for discussion at the first meeting, so we can determine what's an appropriate day for all of
okay,
the
well, I can't
jurisdictional
go to the
representatives.
first meeting. So maybe Ty can go.
I can't.
Oh,
I'm already in
you're
Grand
both
Mound
committed.
and with the chamber down
Don't look at me.
Well, how about you have the assignments already? Maybe you can take some notes on behalf
You'll
of.
be there, right, Chris?
I will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If I'm not at SWAC.
But at least the assignments have
Oh,
been-
you're at SWAC too? Huh?
I don't need to be
Oh,
at SWAC,
okay.
but probably should be at this first climate litigation.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Because
Well,
they're gonna sort out.
maybe I can talk to some folks on SWAC and come to this too. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how
Well,
it
you'll
all
do a
fits.
doodle poll anyway at that, or they'll do a doodle poll at the committee or some, work with the assistants to sort it out, the date and time for everybody, I would imagine.
But mission accomplished. Commissioner was the primary, Commissioner Messer the secondary.
Good, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. I'm going to jump to the budget, because that's always important stuff.
Okay. I think that is this in their
Yeah.
packet? Yep. There are two items I'd like to talk to you today about, and I'm going to go first to the calendar. The budget team has recommended to me, and I am recommending to you.
It looks like this, Commissioners.
That for the midterm adjustment, where you make changes to what is already appropriated for 2020, that we do that on the short calendar, if you will, and adopt the budget in October instead of December.
Is that legal?
Yes. Yes, it absolutely
How
is
come
legal.
why have we been waiting all the time until
Why do we
December?
always go to December?
Yeah.
Because there has been so much to consider. This is so in the first biennium when we did the midterm adjustment, we didn't get the dates quite right, and there were certain notices that weren't, that didn't go out by the required October dates. We've had a conversation with Elizabeth. We know, I've already run these dates past her. She says this absolutely is legal and we can do it. And if you keep the focus of this amendment very narrow, the midterm adjustment would need to be very narrow, which has always been the plan. It's not a free-for-all, it's not open. This is not the time to ask for a bunch of new FTEs or a whole new policy direction. This is a limited, we're gonna fix the rates as we're required to do every year. We're gonna look at internal services. We're going to
Capital
do
facilities plan.
adjustments, to the capital plan. We're going to do adjustments to personnel that are necessary. If you keep it limited like that, then we should easily be able to do the short timeline.
And do it the 29th? Is that-
Yes, we would be adopting the budget on October 29th.
Okay.
So to quote Rick Thomas, we don't expect any unforeseen issues.
There's going to be. I absolutely
That was pretty
expect
funny.
unforeseen issues. There's always something that comes up in
We
the
don't
budget
expect any
process.
unforeseen.
But we're going to
and also,
plan it as tightly as we can.
As a point of clarification, following up on your comment, Commissioner Edwards, this is doable legal, and on the midterm adjustment is doable.
Right.
On the overall biennial budget, it's not doable.
No, I would never
And
suggest this for
commented
the
to
biennium.
2020, when you will consider the 21 and 22, it will take you all the way to December.
Yes.
Because as you know, it's extremely complex. So it's no way that we can meet all the deadlines on that complexity of the budget. But in the midterm, absolutely.
And we would also still have the second biennial budget amendment in December to make any last minute adjustments that you would have to make. So, and that is a very short and easy process. So, but we'll do the midterm if you're agreeable. This is how we'll go forward. I talked to Romero about it. I've already run it past Mary Hall. everyone has looked at it and said, yes, we think this is possible. So I will next present it to the financial leaders at the Brown Bag meeting next week, this week. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. The other item that may not be, we might not have a copy of this in your packet, so I'll ask you to pass this down. I would like you to consider allowing offices and departments that have current appropriation authority for a capital project. I do have an extra one. So what I'm asking is, if you have a capital project with budget appropriation in 2020 and nothing in 19, should the opportunity arise, what I'd like to do is to add to the budget resolution on the capital budget permission for your departments, and really it's only Central Services and Public Works that have capital facility projects, to go ahead and begin them before 2020. And an example of this is the one you see where there's a little star. The mansard roof maintenance is budgeted in 2020. I don't know that Central Services would have the opportunity, but if they did and could start it in 2019, we would like to give them authorization to do that. So
Is this district court? What's the mansard roof?
Courthouse, oh, that's the unattractive red roof that we have throughout the courthouse.
That's what it's called?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
they would
the
be going through and
mansard.
replacing it, or what?
Painting it?
They
Maintenance?
could paint it, they would do major maintenance on it, they might be able to paint it. You would have to ask Julie DeRue about the specifics around this project. I can't share that with you right now, but
Is that a contract, or does staff do that?
it would most likely be on a contract.
That's a lot of money to paint that.
It's
figure out
not
there,
just
isn't it?
painting the roof, and because of
It's
the
fixing it.
materials, it takes a very specific type of application, so it is an expensive process. And then I believe that there is some repair that's necessary. Now, my question to you today is not, can we go forward with this project? My question to you today is, would you be willing to give general authorization to Central Services and Public Works to start a project that they have budgeted only in 2020 early if they're able to? And I just gave you this is only one page of your many-page
six.
capital budget so that you could see an example. Again, I don't know that Central Services would start this one early.
Yeah.
I'm asking if you would
go ahead.
consider that type of global authorization.
I-
And I would recommend yes.
Well, my concern is that, can it continue on? I mean, just for an example, we don't know what's going to happen with the courthouse selection yet. That's coming up. Are we going to put 250,000 into something, and maybe it would have lasted another 2-3 years, and we walk out of here in 2 years? I don't want to be wasting $250,000, but I don't know where we're going on the
I
courthouse.
would agree with you. If we were talking specifically about this project, I would,
Bad example.
absolutely, we could have a discussion about that.
That's not what you're asking us.
That's not what I'm asking
Yeah.
you today. is
Well,
for
yeah,
this
but
I had the same
project.
question.
That's
It
in,
is, yeah.
that's in there, though. I mean, they could,
So
I don't want them even thinking about
I
that.
will clarify that you, as commissioners, have approved this project. This is what is in your budget. There is,
well, I know, but we can always renege.
250,000.
But county manager tells me we can renege on things.
yes, you can,
Oh,
and you still
have the
can.
power.
Yes, you do. So no one's suggesting going forward with that one at this time. It is an example of how the money is currently appropriated.
You have a question?
I mean, your recommendation is yes. Can you just like succinctly tell us why that's
Why?
good? Yeah, why
Because
yes?
I think that it's important that if an opportunity should arise, we be able to seize the day. If a better example is a county road. If some other project is languishing and we have capacity and all of a sudden the state is sending us money, You want to be able to move forward on the most critical road, regardless of the
As soon
year
as you
in
can,
which
yeah.
it was considered. Yeah, you want to be able to go. We could go through a long process, of coming to the board and asking permission to move it out of this year into that year. All I'm asking is that that not be the barrier to going forward.
And we can't just give the county manager authority to make those decisions?
No, you cannot. What Elizabeth has advised me is that we need to redo the resolution. We need to do it on a 2-week notice process, have a public hearing on it because it is related to the budget. These are the things that would create the, oh my gosh, I have to wait a long time if they have to wait.
I have a question, using your road analysis about something that might need, that rises to the top, needing worked on right away. And I might be wrong, I probably am, the roof major maintenance seems to me to be cosmetic. I know there's going to be, well, there might be some structural things to take care of, but in my mind, and I may be wrong, that it's cosmetic. And I don't know which one of these is district court, but that roof's actually leaking to the point where an office doesn't have seating tiles and water's leaking.
Yeah.
To me, that's more important than painting all 3 roofs on the courthouse.
I would not say that, again, I don't have the details of what this project is. I don't know that it's only painting. It may be fixing that district court roof. All of the roofs on these buildings are called the mansard roof.
Okay.
So don't get hung up just about their
roof
appearance.
repair.
It might be. It says maintenance.
What building is that one? Is that 2?
I would have to look it up in the CFP or ask Julie DeRue about the specifics.
We can certainly organize
Yes.
a briefing for staff to walk you through the different projects on the courthouse.
I'm not opposed to this. I don't need a briefing on everything. I just want that dadgum roof fixed.
For what you talk about, the district court, and that is in the works for this year.
Oh, it
In
is?
fact, we already, I'm tracking on that, and in fact, we secured the services of an architect to tell us what is it that we need to do.
Okay.
It was way too much money, and again, put bad money over bad money. But I think we found a way to address the immediate need, and it will bridge us over maybe 4 years.
Okay, thank you. So I was looking at that
That
one.
is in the works.
But I didn't see I saw the other building infrastructure, and I didn't know if that's what that was, the roof. I have no idea.
No, that is in the works for
So
this
it's in the
year.
works. I'm happy then. Okay.
There's this request is a little bit different, just to provide flexibility as to how we implement projects.
Thumbs up?
Cool.
Done.
Then I will prepare the resolution and bring that forward for a public hearing. Thank you. I would also just add to this, and I should know when to stop when I've won, but I would add that this is the first year that we're doing capital projects in a very different method. So we might run into a few bumps along the way, and we knew that, and we assured the departments that we could be flexible when we discovered some areas where we need to be. So it's part of that.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Should we jump to number 5 or go back up to your legislative updates?
Number 5 will be probably easy. Well,
should be brief, I would think.
I shouldn't say that.
Well,
Nothing is easy.
It'll be a 12-minute brief.
Number 5, the EDC, the Economic Development Council, has a yearly trade mission to China. And in 2018, Commissioner Hutchins attended on behalf of the county. The county pays for that trip. The EDC does not subsidize that. And I believe that is a well worth it investment for any of the commissioners to go. And so the mission for 2019 is coming up, I believe, in May. April this year. And the question that I have for the commissioners is, who would like to attend? Usually the chairs attend, but I like to probably make an offer to the other two.
But may I?
Chairs already attended, right?
Yep.
But may I expand on that, and that is, because we already talked about this, and I was kind of throwing it to you, your way, but hadn't been decided. And I received an email from Michael Cade over the weekend, and he explained the trip, and I'd like to get that out, what the trip is doing, because it's a trade delegation. And it includes Beijing, Yantai, Shanghai, and possibly Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And in Beijing, this is all the EDC's agenda. They'll be meeting with the U.S. Embassy and trade officials and be signing an official trade and economic development agreement with the central government agency called the China Association of Development Zones. In Yantai, there will be a tour of a development and manufacturers, trade groups, and trade development companies. And in Shanghai, this is what's really cool, is the EDC created an organization called the Southwest Washington Regional Trade Alliance. And this creates and finds contracts between local Thurston to Thurston County firms with Chinese counterparts. From this, they will have they'll open up an office in Shanghai. The EDC will have an office in Shanghai. With the office space, they'll be able to, they'll have the ability to prominently display and promote Thurston County as an international business development group, and will prominently display and promote local businesses. From that office, they will stand up the Southwest Washington Regional International Business Development Center, the IBDC. They will seek out private sector members and investors. Long term, they'll be developing a counterpart to this in Thurston County. And they anticipate that during the time that we're there at this region, having region-to-region summits. Issues for the group, they'll be signing a formal economic development agreement. They will be, not me. With the government agencies that organizes the development zones. They'll have formal governmental delegation in attendance with them in Beijing. And they wanted a local government official that would act as the counterpart to that group in China. The group will most likely travel with that group. The governmental officials will travel to Yantai and Shanghai, and a counterpart from our local government would be greatly appreciated and appropriate, especially for their opening of the office in Shanghai, which is going to bring increased stature and convey importance to the Chinese counterparts that a governmental official is there as part of the opening. And so what Michael ended was, with my return trip, I know a lot of those folks, so they know me as well, and it lends importance that the local economic development strategies in place are supported with government officials. So he was specifically requesting me, but we were initially, a couple weeks ago, going towards you going. So that's the discussion that we're having now, is who's going to go.
May I provide a suggestion?
Please.
Maybe you could consider going this year again, and maybe next year Commissioner Menser may consider going, because I think is good to open up that experience.
I agree.
For you. I think this year there's a lot of stuff going on your plate.
Yeah, I'm willing and able, but if it happens every year and I have a chance in the future, I don't have any particular.
And I believe I believe next year will be good for you to consider going.
Sounds like a plan.
Good, so that's done.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen. So we're at the legislative update and PIO. Can you want to go ahead and move with that, or
I'll
let
walk
it go?
you through the legislative update very quick.
Okay.
And again, this is fast-moving train. And we had the WASAC legislative update conference call on Friday. So I just want to walk you through a few of the bill's highlights. There is additional information on your packet from WASAC. And you're more than welcome to look at that information as you see this like this. This is the legislative update for WASAC. Okay. Some of the key highlights, and Robin can fill in the voids that I may cause. So there is a proposed bill. It does not have a number yet, and this proposed by Superior Court judges. And this is really introducing before any elected officials sue each other within the same county, they will be required to have a mediation prior to suing each other. That is in the works. Again, I don't have a bill number yet. They have been introduced a House Bill 1174, and that might be an interest of Commissioner Edwards. In this bill, what it does is gives the flexibility to the local jurisdictions not to award to the low bidder any contracts the county has. Because as it is right now, we have the obligation to award to the low bidder regardless of past performance. So this particular bill, it will give the jurisdiction a little more flexibility to perhaps look at past performances of a particular vendor or contractor, and that will be part of the decision-making process. So that is on the way. There's a House Bill 1174. There's also Senate Bill 5035, which is going related to prevailing wages. And that's really is going to be aligning in terms of more accountability as to how prevailing wages are applied to local jurisdictions related to contractors. This is really related to labor law. Senate Bill 5090, and this is related to not to ask any prospect employee their salaries, their current salaries, as they apply for any local government job.
Not to ask them?
Not to ask them. And this is, the background about this is really related to salary, they learn to address the salary inequality. Because the concept is, let's say, if somebody who has already been paid low, whether it's a female, a minority, if that information comes in on the application process, then the issue will continue to be the same, because you will make the decision based on the previous salary that perhaps already was inadequate. Okay? And really that's trying to address the salary inequality.
I mean, don't we already have a high and low range on every one of the applications?
Right, but for instance, if an individual provides that information to the county can probably place that individual as step one.
Yeah, on their application to a previous job, will be paid when
as
they left.
opposed to make the argument of based on their qualifications can make a step 3 or step 4.
I can see that, yeah.
So,
seems like it could go both the exact opposite direction, though. Depends on who's discriminatory.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
exactly, and yeah,
There could
absolutely.
be a little reverse discrimination going on there at some point.
Right, well, if I don't know that
Yeah.
it's pressure on me to,
Yeah.
whatever. I got it.
Interesting.
Senate Bill 5167, I've heard this possibly to pass. This is related to public and employers and contractors to remain extremely neutral related to union memberships. And I think the county already practiced that, but this in the works.
Is this list, Ramiro, just, what is this list? Like, what's the scope of this list?
The scope of the list is what is the bills that is, at least from the Washington State Association of Counties, or the bills of interest.
Of
to
some
counties.
connection to county
Yeah.
government, okay.
It's more narrow than that. This particular list is finance and HR focused.
Okay.
It's
Oh, okay.
not super broad, and it's prepared for a weekly check-in that WASAC provides to HR and finance and
Yeah.
county
And I have a
managers. So
broader
it's-
report for you that includes many other bills.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
And Senate Bill 5217, and that is perhaps trying to introduce legislation to prohibit specific breeds of dogs in the county, so I don't know how that's going to work.
Did you say that was
5204,
5217?
that's 5204.
5204. but-
5217 is the industrial insurance wage loss.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there was a difference, okay.
And Senate Bill 5226, and this is related that an employee cannot be disciplined or fired if they make off-duty freedom of speech. Because sometimes, we represent the county and we need to behave in a certain way. I guess this legislation will, an individual who is practicing freedom of speech outside of the work forum, they cannot be disciplined or fired.
Except for law enforcement. This
Except
is the
for law
one that
enforcement, yeah.
exempted law enforcement.
Senate Bill 5223, that's an alternative uses of process for sick leave usage. And last but not least from this particular list, which might be an interest of you, is Senate Bill 5268, that is sponsored by Senator Hunt. And this bill, what it does is brings the salary of the sheriffs, the sheriffs across the state to be equal to the prosecuting attorney. And I believe that the gist of this bill is to address the inequalities of what the sheriff's salary is in relation to the staff. Here in Thurston County, the sheriff makes holistically less than perhaps the captains on the rank. If you add the captains some additional compensation. So the sheriff's office does makes money. So and this is not unique to Thurston County. So this bill is trying to address that gap, I believe.
So the prosecutor is paid considerably more than the sheriff.
Yes, and the prosecutor is tied to the salary of the judges, if you may recall.
So they're not looking to lower or reduce the prosecutor's salary, are they? To be in line with the sheriff, okay. Just want to be clear.
The prosecutor's salary is tied to the judge's salaries.
So it's an interesting, as opposed to say, for the sheriff's salary is attached to the judges, is attached to the prosecutor, but the prosecutor's salary is attached to the judges.
Good gravy. Okay.
So my sense from the conversation, and I don't know if Romero kind of heard the same thing, is that in general, WASAC is opposed because this would be a significant price tag to all counties.
I don't know as I'm
That's
opposed
kind of
to
what
that.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the annexation bill?
Yeah, the annexation bill, and there's a lot to discuss on this, so give me a couple minutes.
Okay, well, can we talk about something else while you're looking at it?
Yeah.
Senate Bill 5026. I don't get it. It's here.
That's the Reader's Digest.
Yep. Requires, under the Growth Management Act, urban growth area boundaries to follow existing parcel boundary lines and make reasonable efforts to avoid unnecessary divisions. Well, anyway, just with that statement, I think it becomes contrary to the intent of the Growth Management Act.
And that is the recommendation, the perspective I was going to offer. I asked staff to look a little more in detail. They have provided some concerns. Yeah, the county legislative authority does not control parcel boundaries under this statute, and these are controlled by the county assessor. Parcel boundaries do not denote legal lot boundaries for the purpose of the subdivision, as the RCW 5817, and is governed by different laws. Parcel boundaries can change on a daily basis depending on when the assessor updates and or corrects the parcel map. While these are often used to determine UGA boundaries, is not hard and fast rule. Parcel boundaries only shown as a tax lot and may not reflect the actual subdivided property. There may be several parcels in a legal lot and or several legal lots in a parcel. And the Act may require a legal lot to have split zoning when it's divided into tax lots. So there is, and this is, also there is not necessarily aligned with UGA. So the recommendation for you is to ask Deborah to oppose this bill.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you'd have developments moving out into the rural area because that'd be the only place they could create new boundaries.
So that's the recommendation.
Any questions on that?
We're asked to take a position as to this bill for...
If you want to think about it, let me know, certainly.
Yeah, that was kind of fast for me to get my head around, all the permutations. Happy to think harder on it.
I guess.
I'm not going to take a position today. If you're asking me that, it's way too complicated, so.
No, we're not, I don't think you can take a position now.
I'd
but my-
abstain from any vote on that, but.
And my question is, when I look at that one line, the third one down, make reasonable efforts to avoid unnecessary divisions, that speaks to annexation.
No,
Why not?
because it's individual lots. It's not.
Individual
it's
lots,
not
okay.
It's no
All right.
municipal boundaries.
All right.
It's trying to, so it seems like the intent is when you're drawing your urban growth area boundaries, you don't drive it through a parcel. But you're saying there's just greater complexity about.
It's way too complicated because the issue may appear to be narrow, but it's have more complexities. There's going to be bringing more harm than good.
Well, I just think it's contrary to the growth management, the intent of the Growth Management Act.
So I can't wait for another week, obviously. So how long will it take you to review this bill and provide some perspective? Because as we move along, as you know, the legislative process moves quite fast. So we need to have some
It does.
perspective.
Who's the sponsor?
I'm not trying to hold this up. I'm just saying I'm
I'm
not
with
going to
you.
take a position.
No, and I want to be respectful
today.
of your concerns as well.
Because it's going to bump into several other systems and issues, and this is just a real small 4 lines. And it's a complex issue, and I want to understand it completely.
It's a complicated bill. So the sponsors are Honeyford and Fortunato. It's in the local government committee. It has already had a hearing, a public hearing in the Committee on Local Government on January 17th. That was last week. The history does not indicate that there has been an executive session scheduled on this bill, but just as a matter of process, don't forget that it's bad form to weigh in negatively on a bill after it passes at a certain point. So the earlier you can weigh in on a bill, if you've got a negative perspective, the better, because that gives you an opportunity to engage in stakeholders who are in favor of the bill. And as Romero said, the process moves pretty fast.
Would we benefit from having Deb Magia give us a briefing on this? Like,
On this specific bill?
perhaps, this is it's part of Wasac's agenda, yeah?
I mean, I can arrange that.
Or you can, I don't care who. Someone needs to explain. There's only 2 sentences, and I want to understand the greater.
Right.
You were reading
Very
from
good.
something which was what?
Yeah,
Staff
that's
input?
the staff provided a review of this bill.
Can you email us? Is that in here, my package?
Yeah, I can email that to you.
I just,
Okay.
Yeah.
with
It
a
is
few minutes
included.
to
It is
digest
included on your paper.
Is it included in this? No?
No, it's included in
Okay.
here. But I'll forward that to you.
okay.
Thank you.
And I don't want to say no to Deb, but she's also busy in the legislative process.
busy.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it will be worthwhile for her to come and give you a full briefing
Yeah.
on the
On
specific
one-
bill.
Okay. And I agree
With all
with
due
that.
respect.
I agree with that.
Is that, I mean, just roughly is my assumption that this is contrary to the intent of growth management?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the recommendation, because the bill is so complicated that perhaps at this point it will be good to oppose it, but let me know.
Okay.
Currently, the Pasco School District has some interest in this bill in favor of, let's see, the Building Industry Association of Washington testified in favor. FutureWise is opposed. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that would be of interest in
So
the bill.
FutureWise would have the Growth Management Act at heart, and the Building Association would have growth at heart, I guess.
Development.
I'll forward that to you.
Thank you. That's all I need, I think.
Thank you. That is it on that topic. I'm going to jump to PIO, knowing that it's.
Oh, I had it. Well,
You have more?
the annexation bill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you have to go.
No, I don't. But no, go ahead.
So you review proposed changes to the initial annexation bill the City of Lacey proposed. Representative Dolio dropped the bill as presented by the City of Lacey last week. But also, and Saturday, her and I briefly touched base on this. She's also working on another bill that addresses really the islands, the concerns the county has. She, as she stated, she's committed to move forward with that piece of legislation. Because as she told me, it was interesting, it was the first time that I heard a county's position about annexations. I never realized how difficult this process is, her own words.
Wow.
So if anything, as I mentioned to her on briefly on Saturday, that I really appreciated her giving us the time, at least to express our perspective, because the county is not opposed. It never has been opposed to any annexations by any particular jurisdiction. It's just to make sure that we go through the process in accordance to GMA. The annexation should include already developed areas and avoiding creating those islands. I believe the Representative Dolio clearly understood that. And again, I have a draft version of the bill she's going to drop, and I think we're having an internal review. But I think I believe it is very encouraging as to how the Representative Dolio has taken the county's perspective very seriously.
I was thrilled also with that conversation.
Yeah.
It was
So
comforting.
as a result of that, and also she mentioned that she's in the process of dropping a bill that will address the 1% property tax cap. And that by itself is going to be a huge benefit to the county. And also she'll be dropping a new bill, which is going to be dealing with the 0.1% related to housing, to be councilmatic as opposed to going to the vote of the public. If that is also going to be another finance tool the local jurisdictions will have to enact that taxation, because
And can only be used to fund what?
Homelessness. Yeah.
Is it connected, is it restricted to permanent supportive housing, or is it broader than that?
I think it's broader than that.
Okay.
As you may recall, the City of Olympia went through this to the voters, which supported. It's the same option the local jurisdictions will have, but this bill, what it does, it will make it councilmatic as opposed to going to the public. So going back to the annexation bill related to the City of Lacey, I recommend the commissioners to remain neutral on that bill.
Well, I didn't understand that there's two bills. I don't understand why you said there's a second bill related to islands. I thought that's what the first bill was about.
Yeah,
So what are the relationships
I
between
think
the two bills?
they made the argument, a strong enough argument that perhaps on that particular section of the law, the City of Lacey introduced, the islands may not be the right place in the law to address that issue. So I believe that Representative Dolio took that into consideration and drafted this section of the law that addresses in a separate bill.
And that's just a piece of cleanup legislation for that, a law already that exists.
Right. So that is my understanding of the dynamics. Okay, and again, I'm paraphrasing and I assuming a lot of things in here.
So what do you think about a position of has concerns? It's not opposed, but you're expressing that you're not in favor.
I was suggesting that perhaps remain neutral, contingent to
How that other one proceeds.
That one,
how
yeah.
this one proceeds.
That's what with concerns could address. Without, neutral means you don't care if it goes forward or not, but
Yeah.
I think we need to make it very clear that we still have concerns.
And
the
I
bill.
will engage Deborah, depending on your direction. That will be my recommendation. Certainly, not necessarily to oppose the Lacey bill, but certainly, as long as this moves forward to addresses the islands, then life will be good.
Yeah, the big concern is that one bill will move and the other will not.
Yeah.
And that's always that risk.
And that happens sometimes before it gets pulled or not pulled, and nobody knows how come it does or how come it doesn't.
Now,
what it's held hostage for.
if you ask my, crystal ball, Ramirez crystal ball,
Yeah.
This one has much better chance to move forward. than
Which
the
is
other
that one?
That's the new piece of legislation that Representative Dolio is working on annexation.
To address the islands.
Could I see a copy of that?
Yeah, I can give you a copy.
Yeah,
We're just
okay.
going through an internal review just to make sure that we give you the proposed comments.
Okay.
Because the other one is a much higher threshold, what the city of Lacey is proposing.
So that's a great briefing. Do you need thumbs up or downs or sideways? Do you need anything from us?
No,
On that
unless you
stuff?
feel comfortable with that approach, I'll proceed.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
comfortable. I ran for county commission, not state legislature. So unless it's really clear to me that we have a vested interest, I'm taking a neutral position is where I'm going to default, because a lot of these are really complicated, and without doing deep analysis of how that piece of law fits into a whole bunch of other pieces of law, it is just, I don't feel comfortable.
And
So.
the reason that I smile is that that's exactly an attorney speaking.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good
Any
perspective.
commissioner items that you want to bring up while we're on here?
Josh is in the room. I just had one thing that came up. Somebody presented me with something that I would have said, you know, this is too short a time, but there was an email chain that sounded like the county had already addressed it, and I just wanted to ask, a piece of property, Lawson or Lawyer Nursery, that was south of Yelm Highway between Meridian and Spurgeon Creek, is up for auction. It was Stephen Bramwell had sent an email to Josh, who sent an email to Cindy Wilson or his staff. Cindy Wilson responded back and said this would be perfect for, it's all gopher habitat. It's got agricultural buildings on it. It's not useful for other things for a variety of reasons, so it could be like acquired at a very good price. And I didn't know, the last thing I saw was a mid-November email from Cindy reporting back to Josh saying this would be perfect for a whole bunch of checks a lot of our boxes for what we're trying to,
For mitigation.
For mitigation and stuff. So I just wondered if that withered on the vine, or if you guys had already considered it and there was a roadblock I didn't know about.
I just received a chain of emails late last week.
Okay.
And in fact, over the weekend, I responded that I need to have a conversation with Josh and Jennifer to see the value of us pursuing with the purchase of that property.
Okay.
And I think it's good in terms of preservation. I think what I call the $1 million question is, the means and methods as to how we could use as a mitigation credit. And the key element to answer that question is the Mazama Meadows. And the Mazama Meadows, as you may recall, is the prime site as to how we can exercise the credit issuings due to a development. And that is stuck at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And we don't know at this point based on the federal shutdown. So if that moves forward and we understand how the credit methodology works and is approved by the federal government, this property may be a low-hanging fruit to purchase.
And it's February 5th auction, so it's incredibly tight.
So we'll touch base this week. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Gary.
Is there anything that keeps us from purchasing a piece of property with the intent of doing one thing, say, i.e. mitigation for habitat, and finding out that, well, that hasn't been accepted by U.S. Fish or whatever, so it won't meet any of the criteria that we need, and turning around and reselling that property, so that we recoup our money. Okay, it didn't work for our project or for protecting habitat for anything. I don't know what I don't know what the property is. So, I'm kind of thinking that maybe we don't want to miss out on a good deal, if it is a good deal, that we could buy it, because we do have, some money in the bank for this purpose. And then if it falls through that it won't be accepted, won't be mitigation, well, we just put it up, or at that point maybe contact one of the environmental groups that tend to make those kind of purchases and say, well, we're going to put it back up for auction because it won't work for us. Might we help you out with getting this?
And connected to that point is that there's 4 parcels, 160 acres, 2 of the parcels of 120 acres have water right. which gives it, some market value, and it's, South of Sound Community Land Trust is already looking at it and might offer to manage it. There are options. I think it would have a lot of possibilities.
If it's gonna have a water right associated with it, so many acre feet, I'm gonna predict it's gonna go for a pretty high dollar just for the water right. Sometimes, a developer in need of a water right elsewhere will make a purchase and make a trade with the ecology and then sell the property. After that, with the water right gone, they recoup their money and they got a free water right.
Commissioner, please remain to a high-level
Yes, please.
conversation.
What?
So that's a great idea.
Because real estate transactions, you need to have a conversation in
Yeah, this is
executive
high
session.
level.
Yeah, and I'd never, I had.
Well, we're gonna have
I don't
real estate
recall
this
ever thinking about
afternoon,
this.
aren't we?
No.
No, tomorrow.
Great.
Tomorrow, we're gonna be talking about real estate. No, or today.
Today.
Today,
This afternoon.
Oh, well, we can maybe talk about it then.
maybe.
Maybe not.
Okay, so, any other
So
commissioner items?
to answer your question, Commissioner Menzer, yeah, I'm going to meet with Josh and Jennifer and see what the opportunities we have ahead of us.
My only other Commissioner item was, can somebody remind me what timing? I'm getting deluged, like I'm sure we all are, with Summit Lake residents asking to delay this vote till this, and I can't remember the timeline we laid out.
Yeah,
For our vote.
the
Public
commissioners
hearing.
decided to go ahead and held the public hearing, but you will not see this item until the end of March. That's how you decided.
But the hearing is gonna be
And
the
I
end of
think
March
in
or
April,
or
the
something.
hearing will be in April. And again,
And
this is,
that's firm enough that I can respond to people?
yeah,
that-
sometime in April,
That's
yeah.
what we've decided to
Yeah,
have the
and,
hearing in April.
so staff is going to bring this for your.
That's what I thought I remembered, but I
Yeah,
hate to give
that's-
misinformation.
That's the direction.
Any other items?
Nope.
Gary, commissioner items?
Uh,
Knowing this 1221?
Yeah, one, okay, real quick one. The Twin County parking lot. Twin County parking lot is due for resurfacing, but you did a temporary job in there last summer, last fall, something like
Yeah.
that. I don't think we need to spend X amount of money to resurface that at this point in time, especially if we're talking about courthouse properties and what all might happen and all that. And it'd be just like us to resurface it and go dig it up, or somebody else do it. I go through there, I bank there. I don't see that there's a problem. I'm just trying to save some money, fix a pothole in a road that the public's using. That's all. Just want to bring it to your attention. Could you look at it? Maybe you see what you think.
Which parking lot are you talking about?
The Twin County Credit Union parking lot. We kind of did a temporary patch up some holes,
Yeah, where
and
this-
it's scheduled to have like a, I don't know, $80,000 redo.
County offices there.
Okay.
And I just
That's
don't
where
think
the
it
civil
needs it.
division of prosecuting attorney's office is.
Got it.
We also rent a part of that building to a bank.
Yes.
And we are
Financial
bound
institution.
by contract
To
to
keep it up.
maintain
Yeah.
the property to a certain
But I think it is
standard.
maintained to that standard.
It's my understanding that it was so dilapidated that we were at risk of lawsuit.
No, you take a drive through there. I thought, I was under the same impression, but I went and looked at it specifically.
I myself going to take a drive there, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay.
Now, Twin County, I owe it to
Walk
Twin
there.
County.
Walk, because
I owe
it's
it-
the walking condition
Yeah.
that was putting us at risk.
To Twin and also all the other credit unions. It's not a bank, it's a financial institution,
Oh,
it's a credit
yes.
union.
Yeah.
Because they don't have customers, they have members.
Thank you for that distinction.
Thank you.
Thank
Either
you.
way,
I
we
wanna
have
be
a
politically
contract.
correct.
This ad brought to you by credit unions. Any other issues? Mine were all addressed, so I don't have any, and we love you dearly, but is there anything hot off the press, or can we dispense with you? I'm good. You promise? Okay. Thank you, then we're adjourned, we're done.
Thank you.
Ramiro, you said, I think I heard you say you're going to report to the jurisdictions what we decided on,
I'm drafting an email.
so I don't have to. Thank you. Yeah.